Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku was kidnapped by a mafia boss? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. The alley reeked of damp concrete and exhaust fumes, a narrow slice of darkness wedged between two looming buildings. The city was alive with the hum of traffic and distant sirens, but here, it was silent, too quiet. That was the first clue Zero should have noticed. The second was the fact that the target ahead didn't match the profile they'd been briefed on. "Target's over there. Go!" Zero hissed, his voice almost swallowed by the shadows. Mina's fingers twitched as she stepped forward, Kirishima just behind her. They had rehearsed this countless times in simulations, yet the adrenaline made the steps awkward, heavy, real. And then they saw him, a young man, smaller than expected, fragile-looking, with wide eyes that betrayed sheer panic. Midoriya's heart was hammered in his chest. He had been walking home when shadows had closed in around him, the alley suddenly swallowing the world. He tried to turn, to run, but strong hands grabbed him, yanking him back. "Wait. Stuff. Who are you guys?" he cried, struggling against the firm grips. His voice cracked, high and desperate. Kirishima grunted. "He's resisting, just hold him steady." Mina's fingers were cold on his arms, but there was a flicker of unease in her eyes. She glanced at Kirishima, whose jaw was set tightly. Zero frowned. He's not our target." But before anyone could react further, Midoriya's panic escalated. His breaths came in short, sharp gasps, chest heaving. Sweat prickled his forehead. His knees buckled, and with a muffled gasp, he collapsed onto the wet alley floor. "Oh, he's so fragile," Mina whispered, worrying, threading her voice. Kirishima groaned, running a hand down his face. "Boss is gonna kill us if we mess this up." "Call Bkdkanimelover," Todoroki said flatly, pulling out his phone. The gravity in his tone was unmistakable. This was no minor mishap. Bkdkanimelover's arrival was almost cinematic. One moment, the alley was chaos. The next, a shadow separated itself from the darkness, moving with that unmistakable confidence, each step measured. His presence was magnetic and terrifying, cold like steel. "What the hell is going on here?" he barked, eyes scanning the scene. His gaze landed on the collapsed figure of Midoriya. For a moment, irritation flared. Mistakes were unacceptable. His men were supposed to know what they were doing. But then, something in the way the boy gasped, his tiny body trembling, sweat slicking his pale skin, struck a chord Bkdkanimelover couldn't name. He knelt down, roughly but carefully, one hand hovering to check Midoriya's shoulder. "Hey, you okay? Can you even stand?" The boy's breathing was erratic, wheezing with each shallow inhale. Coughs shook his body, faintly tinged with blood. Bkdkanimelover frowned, instinctively leaning closer, forcing his irritation aside. "Why the hell do I care if this kid lives?" The thought surprised him more than anything else. He had faced hardened criminals, ruthless gang leaders, life-or-death confrontations. And yet he felt a tight knot in his chest that he didn't understand. Midoriya's wide eyes met his, fear swimming in the green depths. "Please, don't hurt me," he whispered, voice cracking. Bkdkanimelover's jaw tightened. "Hurt him? Why would I?" But he forced his voice to remain clipped. "I'm not gonna hurt you. You just stay still." The boy's hands trembled as he clutched his chest, trying to steady his rapid heartbeat. A small, wet cough escaped him, and Bkdkanimelover's frown deepened. There was no denying it, something was wrong. Zero shifted uncomfortably. "Boss, should we?" Bkdkanimelover cut him off with a sharp glance. "No. Not here." His eyes never left Midoriya. The alley had grown quiet again. The only sound was the boy's uneven breathing. Time seemed to stretch. The panic in Midoriya's chest was palpable, each wheeze and cough stabbing Bkdkanimelover in the gut. His hands hovered over the boy, uncertain but unwilling to pull back. The usual control he had in every other aspect of life, his power, his decisions, his men felt useless here. "I don't understand what's happening," Midoriya murmured between shaky breaths. I just want to go home. Bakuga's eyebrows are knitted together. Of course he wanted home. But he couldn't let him go, not now. Not after everything he'd seen. Midoriya knew too much, had already seen too much. You're not going anywhere, Bakuga said, voice harsh but tinged with something softer beneath the surface. Not until I know you're okay. The boy blinked at him, vulnerability and confusion mixing in the expression that Bakuga couldn't quite read. Midoriya coughed again, wet and harsh, tiny flecks of blood staining the alley's concrete. Bakuga's chest tightened. Demen it, he muttered under his breath. He reached out cautiously, gripping the boy's shoulders to steady him, his hands firm but careful. Just stay with me, all right? The panic in Midoriya's eyes softened slightly, not fully dissipating, but the tension eased just enough for Bakuga to notice. There was no relief, no joy yet, just the faintest acknowledgement that he could provide some measure of safety. Bakuga stood still for a moment, eyes narrowed, jaw tense. The alley was quiet now, too quiet. Just shaky breathing and the city's distant hum. Bakuga clicked his tongue and finally made a decision. Pick him up. Kirishima blinked. But boss, do you want him dying here and the police sniffing around? Use your head for once. His voice was sharp, but underneath, concern lingered, hidden like a secret. Kirishima carefully scooped Midoriya into his arms. The boy flinched at the contact, his body already retreating from the world like it had learned to expect harm. Mina jogged ahead, opening the black SUV door. Make space, she whispered urgently. Bakuga slid into the back seat first, gesturing for the boy to be placed beside him instead of the far end. Nobody dared comment. The drive was silent except for Midoriya's soft, uneven breaths. He kept staring at the floor, too afraid, too overwhelmed. At one point, Bakuga noticed the boy trembling again. Not dramatic. Almost hidden. He hated how it pulled something in his chest. Bakuga clenched his jaw and pulled off his jacket, shoving it toward Midoriya. Take it? You're freezing. Midoriya hesitated, his hand shook as he accepted the warm leather, muttering, thank you. The gratitude hit harder than it should. Bakuga looked away instantly. Don't get the wrong idea. But the corners of his ears were slightly red. Tall iron gates. Hidden cameras. A mansion that wasn't loud in design, just undeniably powerful. Midoriya's eyes widened despite himself. He doesn't belong here. The car stopped. Bakuga exited first, then glanced over his shoulder. You can walk. Midoriya tried, but failed. His knees buckled. Bakuga moved faster than expected, catching him by the arm. Idiot, he muttered, supporting him all the way inside. The massive foyer felt like another world. Polished marble floor, modern black decor, quiet warmth despite the cold surfaces. Bakuga barked orders immediately. Zero, get my private doctor. Now. Uraraka, prepare a room. Fresh sheets. Oxygen tank ready just in case. Todoroki, stay with me. Just in case this kid tries something stupid. They scattered like well-trained shadows. Bakuga turned to Midoriya, guiding him to sit on a bed in the guest room. The room was bigger than most apartments. Midoriya looked tiny on the edge, gripping the jacket still draped over his shoulders. I'm not your target, he whispered, voice still raspy. Yeah. My dumbass team nabbed the wrong guy. Bakuga leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. But now you're here. Which means you've seen our faces. That's a problem. Midoriya swallowed hard. So, are you going to kill me? Bakuga stared at him for a long, silent moment. The ruthless answer was easy. The truth had claws. No, it slipped out before he could filter it. Midoriya blinked. Confused. Relieved. Terrified. Bakuga clicked his tongue again like he hated the softness attacking him from inside. I'm not in the business of killing innocent people. That surprised Midoriya even more. Bakuga stepped forward, voice low. So you're staying until I figure out what to do with you. Midoriya's breath hitched. The panic returned. His hands shook, fingers curling into the sheets. Hey, look at me, Bakuga whispered, kneeling slightly to meet his eye level. Those ruby eyes were intense but steady. "You're safe here. Nobody's gonna hurt you under my roof." It was both a promise and a warning. Midoriya stared at him, green eyes wide, uncertain, but inside, there was a flicker of trust. Trembling. Bkdkanimelover straightened just as the doctor rushed in. Finally. He stepped aside but didn't leave. Not this time. He watched carefully, arms folded, eyes constantly flickering to Midoriya's face. Bkdkanimelover doesn't know why he cares. Midoriya doesn't know why he feels safer next to a mafia leader than anywhere else. But fate has already begun pulling two opposite worlds together. And the city outside? It has no idea what storm is coming. The doctor finished his assessment, pulling off his gloves with a soft snap. "He's not in critical condition," the doctor reported, adjusting his glasses. "But his body is under significant stress. Dehydrated, low blood pressure. And," he lowered his voice, "this isn't the first time his lungs have struggled like this." Bkdkanimelover's eyes flicked sharply to Midoriya. "Meaning," he demanded. "Meaning he has a pre-existing condition," the doctor answered. "One that could worsen if he keeps experiencing intense stress or physical effort." He packed away his stethoscope. "He needs rest. A few days of monitoring. Maybe more." Bkdkanimelover's expression darkened, not with annoyance this time, but something else. "I will make sure he rests." The doctor nodded and left. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the room. Midoriya watched Bkdkanimelover cautiously from the bed, fingers twisting in the blanket. His voice cracked soft and hesitant. "I really can't go home?" Bkdkanimelover leaned against the wall, arms crossed but posture tense. "No," he answered bluntly. "You know too much." Midoriya's heart dropped. His breath stuttered again. Bkdkanimelover noticed, brows knitting together. "Don't start panicking again," he growled, stepping closer. "I said you're safe here." "That doesn't mean I'm not terrified," Midoriya murmured, eyes lowering. For a moment, Bkdkanimelover's guard slipped. He crouched again, level with Midoriya, not towering, not threatening. "How old are you?" he asked, tone suddenly softer. "N19. Bkdkanimelover clicked his tongue. "You look younger." Bkdkanimelover held his gaze a heartbeat too long before grunting. He stood again and reached for a small control panel beside the bed. "If you need anything, press this button. One of my people will come. Don't wander. Don't do anything dumb." Midoriya's voice was barely audible. "What? I want to leave." Bkdkanimelover turned halfway, looking over his shoulder. Those sharp, ruthless eyes softened for 1 second. "Then you'll have to get past me." Midoriya's breath caught. Not fear, something else. Bkdkanimelover opened the door halfway but paused, fighting with a thought that clearly irritated him. "I'll figure out what to do with you later," he muttered. He left before Midoriya could respond, the door closing with a final click. Bkdkanimelover stormed down the hallway, hands buried deep in pockets, jaw clenched tight. Why was he bothered? Why did a random, weak stranger make his chest feel tight? Zero jogged up beside him. "So, boss, what's the deal with the green bean?" Bkdkanimelover glared fire at him. "Shut up." Zero zipped his mouth shut and vanished. Kirishima came next, braver, softer-voiced. "He's scared, you know? And sick. We did screw up. We'll fix it." Bkdkanimelover snapped too quickly. Kirishima blinked. A slow grin crept up on him. "Do you care?" "I care about not getting the police breathing down my neck." Kirishima didn't believe him. Bkdkanimelover didn't either. Todoroki approached quietly, arms crossed. "We still need the real target. Our mistake wasted time." Bkdkanimelover clicked his tongue but nodded. "We'll track him tonight. I've already set Kaminari to trace his route." His voice returned to steel. "Just keep the kid comfortable." Todoroki raised a brow. "Comfortable? That's surprisingly merciful of you." Bkdkanimelover shoved past him. "If he dies here, it's paperwork and it's annoying." But Todoroki saw the lie. Midoriya sat alone, hugging his knees. He wasn't tied up, wasn't guarded with guns. Yet he felt like a bird in a glass cage. The door knocked lightly. Uraraka peeked in, carrying a tray. "Dinner. Doctor says you need to eat soft food until your breathing stabilizes." On the plate, soup. A tiny cup of pudding hidden behind the bowl. Midoriya blinked. Is that dessert? She smiled conspiratorially. Don't tell Bakugo. He says sweets are distracting. A small laugh slipped out from Midoriya after hearing what Uraraka said. His hands shook when he reached for the spoon. Uraraka gently supported his wrist. You're okay. Take it. Slow. He breathed. And warmth spread through his chest, not just from food. People here weren't monsters. Later, Kirishima stopped by, bringing fresh blankets. You look chilly, man. Stay warm, all right? Thank you. Midoriya couldn't stop feeling confused. Sure, they kidnapped him, but there was goodness here. Somewhere. Midoriya woke up past midnight, throat dry, heart aching with the need to be free. He slipped quietly out of bed. His bare feet barely touched the polished floor. The door creaked open, slowly, carefully. He just needed to breathe fresh air. See outside. Touch freedom again. A few steps down the hall. His vision blurred. Chest tightened. Air vanished like someone sucked oxygen out of the world. He collapsed with a soft gasp. A hand caught him before he hit the ground. Of course you try something stupid. Bakugo's voice low, frustrated, trembling. He lifted Midoriya effortlessly into his arms. Midoriya clawed weakly at his shirt, desperate for air. Can't breathe. I know. I've got you. Calm down. Bakugo carried him back, laying him down with surprising gentleness. Then his anger snapped like a flame meeting fuel. What the hell were you thinking? His voice cracked with fear. Midoriya flinched, tears burning his eyes. I just wanted to go home. Silence. Bakugo squeezed his eyes shut, one hand pressing to his forehead. Do you mean it? He sat down on the bed's edge, close enough that Midoriya could feel his warmth. You can't run, Bakugo murmured. Not because you're a prisoner. Because you'll kill yourself pushing your limits. Midoriya looked up slowly. Bakugo wasn't looking at him but at the floor, fists clenched, jaw tight with frustration he didn't understand. After a moment he finally spoke. The doctor said your lungs are weak. He kept his voice level, but there was tension behind every word. Bakugo continued, eyes still averted. He said stress could push your condition into something a lot worse. So, he hesitated as if the word itself annoyed him. So, peace for now. Stay here until you're okay. Midoriya swallowed hard. His fingers tugged anxiously at the hem of the blanket. It's complicated, he whispered. Bakugo's gaze finally met his sharp, demanding truth. Midoriya pulled his knees slightly up, wincing at the soreness, and tried to steady his breathing before he spoke. I was born with weak lungs, he admitted softly. Doctors never gave it a proper name. They just said my lungs scar easily, and infections hit me harder than most people. There was no pity in Bakugo's face, only attention. Midoriya found comfort in that. When I was little, he continued, I spent a lot of time in hospitals. Pneumonia, fluid buildup, breathing treatments. He gave a tiny, self-conscious laugh. I couldn't keep up with the other kids. I'd pass out from just running a little. Bakugo's fingers twitched like he wanted to react but didn't know how. Midoriya took a shaky breath. The doctors said I'd have to be careful for the rest of my life. That one bad infection could, he trailed off as if finishing the sentence might make it real. Bakugo's voice dropped low, controlled, but strangely gentle, could kill you. Midoriya nodded. Bakugo exhaled slowly, a deep, frustrated drag of breath through his teeth. That's why you fainted back there, he muttered. Your lungs freak out under stress. Midoriya nodded again, a little embarrassed. It's not as bad as it sounds. I'm usually okay. Just, when I panic it gets worse. Bakugo stared at him for a long moment. Then quietly but firmly. I'm not letting you die here. Midoriya blinked. His chest tightened, not from illness, but something unfamiliar and warm. You're staying, Bakugo declared. And I'll make sure you breathe. Got it? Midoriya opened his mouth, words trembling. Why do you care? Bakugo's eyes widened, just slightly. Like Midoriya had struck a nerve. Hell if I know, he growled. But the anger wasn't real. Not anymore. He stepped closer, close enough Midoriya could feel the warmth radiating off him. "But I'm responsible for what happened to you." His voice cracked just barely, so soft Midoriya almost missed it. "And I'm not losing someone because of my own screw-up." A quiet promise hung in the air. Midoriya looked down at his hands, no longer shaking. "Thank you," he whispered. Bkdkanimelover turned away quickly, ears burning. "Don't get used to it," he snapped. Morning came slowly. Midoriya woke to sunlight spilling through tall windows, glassy and elegant, nothing like his small apartment with rattling blinds and chipped paint. He lay still for a moment, trying to remember why he wasn't home. Then his lungs ached a little. Then he remembered the alley. The mansion. Bkdkanimelover. A soft beep sounded from the monitor by his bed. He blinked at the oxygen mask resting loosely nearby, clearly placed for emergencies. The door creaked open. Bkdkanimelover stepped in holding a tray, a scowl carved deep into his face like it was permanent. "You're awake." "Good," he muttered. "Sit up. You need to eat." Midoriya stared at the scene, Bkdkanimelover Katsuki, Mafia boss, carrying oatmeal like a nurse in a hospital drama. "I can eat by myself," Midoriya whispered. Bkdkanimelover narrowed his eyes. "I'm not hand-feeding you, nerd. Just eat before you pass out again." He set the tray in front of Midoriya and crossed his arms, watching like he expected Midoriya to spontaneously stop breathing. Midoriya hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Thank you." Midoriya reached for the spoon, fingers shaking slightly. The oatmeal smelled bland but warm, somehow grounding him. Bkdkanimelover didn't say anything else, just stood there, arms crossed, tapping one boot against the polished floor. His sharp eyes flicked from Midoriya's face to the tray like a hawk measuring prey or maybe protection. Midoriya wasn't sure. He managed a few bites, careful not to inhale too quickly, listening to the quiet of the mansion. Every shadow and polished surface screamed wealth and danger, yet somehow it felt safer than the alley. Finally, he looked up. "Thanks for bringing this," he murmured, voice tentative. There was a pause. Then Bkdkanimelover muttered something under his breath that Midoriya didn't catch. The door opened again, and Uraraka peeked in, holding a small cup of juice. "He might like this better," she said cheerfully. "Vitamin C helps with lungs." Midoriya's lips twitched into a shy smile. He hadn't realized he could feel this normal in the middle of a mafia mansion, surrounded by people trained to hurt others. Bkdkanimelover's scowl deepened as he noticed the smile. He muttered something unintelligible, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Eat up," he barked, a little sharper than intended. "If you collapse again, don't expect me to carry you out of here every time." Midoriya nodded, taking another careful bite. The warmth of the food and the faint, awkward attentiveness of Bkdkanimelover made his chest ache, not from his lungs, but something else entirely. Once the tray was empty, Bkdkanimelover snatched it away, setting it on a side table with a clatter. "But that's enough. Don't gorge yourself or you'll make me regret not just leaving you in the alley." Midoriya's eyes widened, and a nervous laugh escaped him. "I'm not used to anyone worrying about me," he admitted softly. Bkdkanimelover's ears twitched, and his jaw clenched. "Don't be mistaken. I'm not worried about you," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "I'm responsible for what happened back there. That's it. End of story." Midoriya nodded, but he couldn't shake the warmth from his chest. He realized it was the first time in a long while he felt like someone actually cared that he stayed alive. The room fell quiet for a moment, both lost in their thoughts. Then, Bkdkanimelover's sharp gaze flicked to the window. "Don't even think about sneaking out," he said abruptly, startling Midoriya. Midoriya looked down, cheeks heating, but something in Bkdkanimelover's tone, a mix of irritation and concern that made him stay put. The rest of the morning passed in a strange rhythm. Uraraka peeked in a few times with small snacks. Kirishima wandered by with a cheerful grin and a joke that made Midoriya laugh despite himself. Even Todoroki appeared briefly, silent but offering a cold bottle of water. Bkdkanimelover watched each interaction quietly, arms crossed, a storm behind his eyes. He didn't understand why his chest felt tight every time someone else showed Midoriya even a hint of care, why his stomach twisted when the boy laughed softly, or why he found himself lingering at the doorway longer than necessary. But he said nothing, just reminded himself. He's my responsibility. Nothing more. And nothing less. For now. The quiet settled into something almost comfortable, but Midoriya's curiosity prickled at him like a persistent itch. He glanced at Bkdkanimelover, who was leaning against the doorway, posture rigid, arms crossed, every inch the intimidating Mafia boss. Midoriya began softly, hesitant. I don't actually know your name. Bkdkanimelover's sharp eyes flicked down at him, and for a moment his scowl deepened. Huh. I know you're the one who brought me here, Midoriya said quickly, cheeks heating. But I don't know what to call you. Bkdkanimelover's lips pressed into a thin line. A flicker of irritation passed over his features, as if the question annoyed him, but then he sighed, dragging a hand through his spiky hair. Tsuchi fine. Katsuki. Bkdkanimelover. Katsuki Bkdkanimelover. Happy? Midoriya blinked, committing it to memory. Katsuki. Bkdkanimelover, he repeated softly. Then, gathering courage, he added, Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya Izuku. You can call me Midoriya. Bkdkanimelover strode into the sleek command room, walls lined with monitors and maps, the soft hum of electronics filling the space. His team was already gathered, faces serious, the earlier panic from the mistaken kidnapping replaced with the calculated calm of professionals. Kaminari was tapping at a tablet. Boss, we traced the guy's last known route. He split off near the East District. Could be anywhere now. Bkdkanimelover's sharp eyes scanned the digital map, hands tightening into fists. Good. Keep tracking. No mistakes this time. Zero, you're on drone recon, eyes everywhere. Mina, Kirishima, you're with me. We move fast, precise. We can't screw this up like last time. He knew one thing, he couldn't leave Midoriya completely alone. The boy was fragile, scared, and far from capable of handling danger, even inside the mansion walls. He tapped his finger on a small panel, locking in a room camera feed. I'm not taking any chances. Uraraka, you stay with him. Make sure he eats, rests, and doesn't wander. Todoroki, your backup. Keep the place secure. Uraraka straightened immediately, a determined smile lighting her face. Got it. Don't worry, I'll keep him safe. Todoroki inclined his head slightly. Understood. His voice was calm. The team moved quickly, loading weapons, checking gear, and reviewing the target's last known positions. Bkdkanimelover's sharp mind was already several steps ahead, but a shadow of concern lingered in his chest. Midoriya, alone in the mansion under Uraraka and Todoroki's watch, was the one thing he couldn't control, and the thought gnawed at him. He pressed a hand to the control panel, pulling up a live feed of Midoriya's room. The boy was sitting on the edge of the bed, blanket wrapped tightly around his shoulders, staring at the window. Light spilled across his pale face, eyes wide and uncertain. Night had swallowed the city, the streets slick with rain and glinting under scattered neon lights. Bkdkanimelover moved like a predator among shadows, his team following silently. Every movement was precise, trained lethally. Target is near the old warehouse district. Last sighting, 10 minutes ago, Kaminari whispered, fingers hovering over his tablet. Bkdkanimelover's sharp gaze swept the rooftops, alleys, and side streets. Keep it tight. No screw-ups. We take him alive if possible. If not, he didn't finish, but the implication was clear. Zero flicked a wrist, sending out surveillance drones. We've got visual. Movement at 3 o'clock. He's trying to double back through the docks. Bkdkanimelover gritted his teeth, silent except for short, clipped commands. Mina and Kirishima flanked him, muscles tense, ready to react. Todoroki, cool and collected, shadowed their left flank, analyzing every escape route. The operation unfolded like clockwork. The team cornered the target in a narrow alley, no escape. Bkdkanimelover stepped forward, voice low and dangerous. End of the line. Stop moving. The man turned, hands raised, panic flaring. I don't know what you're. Bkdkanimelover's glare cut him off, the air around him almost vibrating with controlled aggression. Don't waste my time. You know why we're here. The second you move, it ends badly for you. The target went limp under their grip, terror etched on his face. Bkdk crouched slightly, inspecting him. The man's eyes widened as if he recognized the predator before him. Bkdk's lips twitched in a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. You should have thought twice before running. Bkdk moved with lethal grace, every decision precise. The man struggled, but Bkdk's hand shot out, gripping his shoulder with bone-crushing strength. Stop moving, Bkdk repeated, voice a growl. One more wrong move and you'll regret it. The target froze, fear rooting him to the spot. Bkdk's team secured him swiftly, no casualties, no mistakes. Bkdk finally straightened, chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. He gave a curt nod to his team. We're done. Move. They shoved the captured official into the back of a reinforced black van. Kirishima clapped Bkdk on the shoulder. Smooth job, boss. The drive back to the mansion was silent except for the hum of the tires on wet asphalt. Bkdk's thoughts lingered on Midoriya, alone, vulnerable, waiting for him. He pressed a hand to the control panel, glancing at the live feed from the guest room. Midoriya sat quietly, eyes downcast, shoulders tense. The operation was a success. A private lounge deep inside a high-rise. No noise. No windows. Bkdk entered with Kirishima, steps heavy but confident. A middle-aged man in a navy suit sat waiting, Mr. Arakawa, the client. Political power hidden behind polite smiles. He stood and shook Bkdk's hand respectfully. You delivered the man who betrayed me, Arakawa said. I owe you a debt. Bkdk didn't bother with pleasantries. We want intel. Arakawa nodded, gesturing for them to sit. He opened a polished leather briefcase, sliding a folder across the table. The man you caught was leaking government security routes to a syndicate. He tapped the folder. We believe they are planning something large. Something that threatens the city. Bkdk's expression sharpened. Who leads this rival group? Arakawa crossed his arms. We don't know the leader. We only know their codename. He lifted a page inside the folder. The Ghost Hand. A name whispered in underground circles, always with fear. Kirishima's eyes narrowed. Rumors say they erase people without a trace. Arakawa nodded grimly. Bodies never found. All witnesses vanish. No evidence left behind. Bkdk clenched his jaw. So you want us to find them? Arakawa met his gaze directly. You're the only one who can do that. A beat of silence. Then Bkdk smirked, dangerous and proud. Tell us everything you know. They returned just before sunrise. The mansion was quiet, guards alert. Uraraka met Bkdk in the foyer, bowing slightly. He's fine. I kept watch outside the room like you ordered. Bkdk nodded once, approval subtle but present. Good. You can rest now. She blinked, surprised at the softness in his tone, then smiled gratefully and left. Bkdk stood in front of Midoriya's door for a long moment. His hand hovered just short of the handle. Ridiculous. He had faced gunfire, cartels, underground syndicates, but the idea of walking into a quiet room to check on one single, fragile idiot made him tense. He exhaled sharply through his nose and pushed the door open. Midoriya was curled beneath the blankets, chest rising and falling in steady breaths. The oxygen mask lay nearby, untouched, which is a good sign. His hair was a messy green halo on the pillow. Midoriya stirred. Bkdk froze. Green eyes blinked open, unfocused, then sharpening on him. Midoriya tensed at first, then relaxed when he recognized who stood there. You're back, he whispered, voice sleep-rough and surprised. Bkdk clicked his tongue. Obviously. Midoriya slowly pushed himself up on his elbows. His hair flopped messily into his eyes until he brushed it aside. Did everything go okay? A beat of silence. Bkdk answered without the sharpness he intended. Yeah. Bkdk glanced away, suddenly annoyed at his chest for feeling lighter. You should be asleep. Midoriya hesitated. Did you come to check on me? The question landed softly, but it struck Bkdk like a sucker punch. Please don't flatter yourself, he grumbled, crossing his arms defensively. I just needed to make sure Uraraka didn't screw up. Midoriya's smile grew just a bit. Right? Of course. There was again that warmth. The trust. Bakuga hated how it made his heartbeat stumble. He turned sharply toward the door. Just go back to sleep, okay? You still look like crap. But as he reached for the handle, Midoriya's quiet voice stopped him. Katsuki? Bakuga froze. Thank you. For everything. Bakuga didn't turn back. If he did, he'd show too much. Don't make me regret it, he muttered, his voice softer than it should have been before slipping out the door. Bakuga walked down the hallway, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Arakawa's folder weighed heavily in his mind, the ghost hand. A new threat. A new war. He should have been thinking about strategy. Targets. Power struggles. Instead, all he could think about was a fragile boy with bright green eyes. This was dangerous. He already knew the most important rule of the underworld. Attachment gets you killed. And somehow, he had already broken it. Midoriya wasn't supposed to be out of his room. He knew that. He told himself he would only stretch his legs, just for a little walk down the hallway. But curiosity tugged harder. He needed to understand Bakuga, to understand why he was trapped here, why a mafia boss had risked himself to save a stranger in an alley. So when he heard raised voices from the courtyard, low, dangerous, he followed. Carefully, quietly. He pressed himself behind a stone pillar and peeked between the marble edges. The courtyard stretched like a private coliseum, high stone walls, trimmed hedges forming a maze around a circular clearing, the moon casting a silver stage light over everything. The air carried the faint scent of rain and blood. Bakuga stood in the center, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark combat gear beneath his half-buttoned shirt, his spiky blonde hair glowing under the moonlight like a crown made of wildfire. 3 men knelt before him, hands zip-tied, their guns discarded in a pile nearby. They weren't random thugs. Midoriya recognized their faces from news reports, members of the corrupt Shigaraki crew, accused of extortion and trafficking, but always slipping away from the law. Yet here they were, trembling, pale, backs hunched like hunted animals. Bakuga didn't give them time to beg. His fist shot forward, faster than Midoriya's eyes could track, connecting with the first man's jaw. The crack echoed through the courtyard. The man collapsed sideways, gasping through clenched teeth. The second man lunged desperately, wrist twisting as he tried to pull a hidden blade from his sleeve. Bad move. Bakuga's boot came down, pinning his arm to the ground with terrifying precision. Bones crunched. The man's scream was cut short by Bakuga's hand grabbing his collar and yanking him up like he weighed nothing at all. You thought you could sell my intel? Bakuga's voice was low, venomous. In my city? The man's lip quivered. No. Boss, please. Bakuga's face didn't change. No softness. No hesitation. You knew exactly who you betrayed. He slammed the man into the concrete. The ground cracked beneath the impact. The second gangster fell still, not dead, just wishing he was. The third man scrambled to his feet, turning to flee into the shadows of the hedges, but Mina stepped out, twirling a knife playfully. Going somewhere? She giggled, voice sweet like candy dipped in poison. Kirishima blocked the other escape path, cracking his knuckles with a wide, toothy grin. Let's not make this harder, yeah? The man froze, shaking so violently his ankles nearly buckled. Midoriya pressed a hand over his mouth, heart pounding. No bullets. No drawn-out brawl. Just brutal, precise efficiency. A silent takedown. These criminals, who terrorized whole districts, were reduced to whimpering prey in seconds. Bakuga Katsuki wasn't just a mafia boss. He is powerful enough to bring them to their knees. Midoriya's heart hammered so violently in his chest he was sure it would echo through the courtyard. He had seen violence before on screens, from a safe distance where heroes arrived before the worst could happen. But this was different. This was Bakuga. Yet here, beneath the moonlight, Bakuga Katsuki was a monster carved from rage and fire. Midoriya's breath hitched as Bakuga crouched next to one of the men. His voice dropped to a whisper, too calm, too sharp, the kind of tone people only used right before they ended someone. You don't get second chances when you gamble with my name, he said. Midoriya's fingers dug into the pillar until his knuckles turned white. His knees trembled, a cold sweat crawling down his spine. What if I make him angry? What if I say the wrong thing? He shouldn't be here. He shouldn't have left his room. Midoriya's breath came shallow, vision blurring at the edges. What am I doing here? Suddenly, Midoriya's lungs seized. A sudden, brutal tightness clamped around his chest as if invisible hands were crushing his ribs. His breath stuttered, sharp and painful. Not here. Not now. He tried to force air in quietly, but a harsh cough ripped out of him before he could stop it. He slapped a trembling hand over his mouth, desperate to silence himself. The edges of his vision darkened, narrowing around Bakugo's silhouette in the courtyard. The small noise, too small for anyone else, was loud enough for Bakugo. His head snapped toward Midoriya's hiding spot. Just before he collapsed, two strong hands caught him, hot, calloused fingers gripping his arms with startling urgency. "Oi, what the hell are you doing out here?" Bakugo barked, but his voice trembled. Midoriya tried to breathe steadily, but his lungs fought him. Panic surged, he shoved weakly at Bakugo's chest. "Let me go." Bakugo's jaw clenched. His grip tightened. "Stop talking. Breathe." He looked over his shoulder, roaring toward his team, "Someone get the demon inhaler." Kaminari sprinted instantly. Midoriya dragged in a ragged breath, but the air burned, like glass tearing through his lungs. His fingers clawed weakly at Bakugo's coat. "Let go," he gasped, heart racing wild. If you do that to me too?" Scared? Bakugo's eyes widened. His jaw set, not in anger, but in something raw and unguarded. His grip only tightened, grounding Midoriya in place. "I would never hurt you," Bakugo said, too fast, too intense, like the truth slipped out without permission. "Never. So stop fighting me." Kaminari arrived with the inhaler, sliding to his knees. Bakugo snatched it, pressing it firmly against Midoriya's lips. "Deep breath," he ordered, voice cracking like fragile glass. One breath. Then another. Slowly, painfully, Midoriya's lungs loosened. Color returned to his cheeks. The panic ebbed. His trembling hands fell against Bakugo's chest, not pushing now, just holding on. He felt Bakugo's heartbeat under his palms, fast and uneven. Like Bakugo was the one dying. Bakugo exhaled hard, shoulders dropping in visible relief, then whipped his head away, pretending he hadn't been terrified. Mina stepped forward with a little grin, voice teasing. "Boss, if you keep glaring like that, Midoriya is gonna think you're the villain." Bakugo glared, heat rising visibly in his expression. "Shut up. He shouldn't be out here in the first place." Kaminari smirked. "Such a rare thing to see you like this." Bakugo stiffened, realizing Midoriya was still clutching his coat. He gently pried Midoriya's fingers loose. "It's just," Bakugo muttered, eyes flicking away as his voice dropped to a low growl. "I'm responsible for what happens in my territory. I'm not letting someone die on my watch. That's all." Bakugo stood, still keeping one hand on Midoriya's back as if the boy might vanish if he let go. "Mina, finish cleaning this up," Bakugo ordered, voice sharp again, but only to hide the fear still rattling his ribs. "Make sure none of those BSers even think about waking up unsupervised." Kirishima grinned, saluting playfully. "Roger that, boss." Bakugo turned back to Midoriya, eyes softening instantly. "Can you walk?" he asked. Midoriya tried, he really did. He planted his trembling hands against the cold, wet stone of the courtyard, feeling the slickness under his fingers. He pushed, willing his legs to cooperate, but his knees wobbled violently, like they weren't his own. Every step forward was a battle against gravity, against weakness, against the exhaustion that wrapped around his body like heavy chains. His breath came in shallow, uneven gasps, each inhale sharp and stabbing through his chest. The muscles in his legs screamed in protest, quivering under his own weight. He stumbled once, almost collapsing, and his arms shook from the effort of holding himself upright. Then the world tilted violently, a wave of dizziness washing over him. His legs buckled completely. His chest constricted, lungs burning like they were filled with fire instead of air. He barely managed to catch himself with one trembling hand against the stone, but it was no use. Just before he could fall fully, A pair of strong, sure hands wrapped around him, lifting him in an instant. The warmth and pressure of Bakugu's arms around his torso grounded him, both physically and, somehow, mentally. Bkugu didn't hesitate. He shifted his grip, slipping one arm under Midoriya's knees and the other around his back. Without a word, he lifted him fully into a bridal carry, holding him close. Midoriya's breath hitched, so close, so warm, and impossibly safe despite the tension coiled in Bakugu's arms. The team paused for a fraction of a second, watching the scene unfold. Kirishima's grin softened, eyes sparkling, while Mina twirled her knife absent-mindedly but smiled knowingly. Kaminari's lips curved in amusement, shaking his head. None of them said a word, they simply exchanged looks, understanding the silent weight of the moment. As Bakugu strode through the wet courtyard, Midoriya could feel every movement, the taut muscles in Bakugu's arms, the subtle sway of his balance as he avoided puddles, the firm pressure keeping him secure. Each step sent a jolt through Midoriya's body, and his chest tightened, not from pain, but from the strange swell of emotion he couldn't name. Every step was calculated to keep Midoriya safe, even as Bakugu's own body was tense from the adrenaline of the fight. Inside the mansion, the hallways seemed impossibly long. Midoriya's head rested against Bakugu's chest. His hands fidgeted against Bakugu's coat, unsure whether to cling, let go, or simply remain still. At last, they reached Midoriya's room. Bakugu eased him down onto the bed with careful precision, kneeling beside him to check that he was comfortable. Midoriya's fingers curled in the blanket, still trembling slightly. Bakugu's amber eyes softened, just a fraction, just enough for Midoriya to catch the difference. "Stay here," he said, voice quieter now, the tension in it fraying just a little. Midoriya hesitated, then swallowed the lump in his throat. His voice was barely a whisper, strained and vulnerable. How do I trust you? How can I believe you won't do that to me? What if I do something wrong?" Bakugu's jaw clenched, his gaze hardening for a moment as if he wanted to snap at the question. Then, slowly he exhaled, a low, deliberate sound, and his voice shifted, rough but sincere, carrying a weight Midoriya had never heard before. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said, leaning closer, voice rough but steady. "I'm not like them. You made it here. Alive. That's proof enough for now. You're not the type to do something stupid, to betray me. Deep down, I can tell you're probably one of the kindest people I've ever met. So, it would never happen." Midoriya's eyes widened, unsure whether to cry or just dissolve into relief. The sincerity in Bakugu's words, the raw intensity of his promise, resonated deeper than he expected. Bakugu added, softer, almost inaudible, "I'll keep you safe. That's my job. Nobody else can." Midoriya's chest tightened again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something else, admiration, gratitude, and a tiny flicker of trust, fragile but growing. He nodded slowly, voice quivering. "I'll try to trust you." Bakugu stared at him for a long moment, eyes searching his face like he was trying to read every unspoken thought. "Why did you leave your room?" he asked. Midoriya froze, fingers curling in the blanket as he searched for words. His voice wavered, fragile. "I wanted to see the world outside. To feel it, the wind, the sky, people live. Because, who knows, with my condition right now, it wouldn't be weird if I don't have much longer time left." He swallowed hard, throat tight, eyes flicking toward the window as if the moonlight could somehow answer him. "I just wanted to live even a little. To enjoy it before it's too late." Bakugu's jaw clenched, his amber eyes narrowing as he looked at Midoriya. For a moment, the fire and rage that usually defined him softened, replaced by something heavier, a mix of regret, concern, and guilt. You think I've been keeping you locked up like a demon prisoner, huh?" he muttered, voice rough, almost strangled. Midoriya looked down, fingers fidgeting with the blanket, unable to meet his eyes. "You kind of did," he admitted softly. "I understand why. You wanted to keep me safe. I can't just stay here forever. Not when I might not have forever to begin with." Bakugu's shoulders dropped slightly, and he ran a hand through his spiky hair, something unusual in its hesitation. He crouched closer to the bed, hands resting on his knees. "Damn it," he muttered, low enough that only Midoriya could hear. "I didn't think about that. About how it feels for you. Thought keeping you inside was enough." The pause. Then, Bakugu's gaze sharpened again, fierce but tender. "Tell me, if I said I could bring you out? If I said I could show you the outside world, where would you want to go?" Midoriya blinked, heart hammering. The thought of leaving the mansion, of feeling the wind on his face, the sun on his skin, even for a little while, it felt like breathing after being underwater too long. "I'd want to see everything," he whispered, voice trembling. "Even the small things. Streets, parks, the people. I just want to live. Really live." Bakugu's amber eyes softened, and he leaned closer, voice low, deliberate, carrying the weight of someone who had never allowed himself to show vulnerability. "Then that's what we'll do," he said, every word like a promise. "No one's gonna stop you. I'll make sure of it. And don't worry. I'll be right there." Midoriya's chest tightened, eyes watering slightly. He wanted to reach out, to touch that certainty, to anchor himself to it. "Okay," he whispered, almost too quiet to hear. "I want to trust you." Bakugu's jaw set, not with anger, but with a protective determination that made it impossible to doubt him. "Then you do. That's all I need. You just trust me." For the first time in weeks, Midoriya felt a spark of hope. And for Bakugu, watching the boy cling to that fragile trust, a silent promise anchored itself deep in his chest. He would not let it break. Bakuga didn't sleep that night. He stood outside Midoriya's door long after the boy had drifted into a restless sleep, his breathing finally steady. The moonlight filtered through the hallway windows, casting fractured shadows over Bakugu's fists, still stained with someone else's blood. He hated the feeling in his chest. He could take down traitors, run entire districts, destroy anyone who threatened his people. But keeping one fragile boy alive felt harder than any war he had ever fought. Bakugu exhaled sharply and turned away from the door. He had made a promise. And Bakugu Katsuki didn't break promises. The next morning, the squad gathered in the strategy room, maps, weapons racks, hollow screens glowing with security routes. But this time, they weren't here to plan a raid or interrogation. Bakugu stood at the head of the table, frowning, arms crossed, shoulders tense, like he was preparing to admit the most humiliating truth of his life. "Okay," Kirishima dragged out, glancing at everyone. "If you called us this early, it must be serious." Bakuga glared. He cleared his throat. Twice. Still couldn't find the DMN words. Mina leaned forward with a sly smirk. "Spit it out, boss. Did someone make you blush again?" Bakugu's eye twitched. "One more word, Pinky, and I'll bury you." Mina only winked. Bakugu raked a hand through his hair, then finally ground the words out. "I'm taking that nerd outside." Kaminari blinked exaggeratedly. Kirishima froze, halfway through sipping his protein shake. Mina let out a dramatic gasp. Ciro's jaw dropped. "Hold up, boss is taking someone outside?" His grin stretched wide. Uraraka's eyes sparkled, clasping her hands together. "Ah, that's so sweet. Like a date." Kaminari grinned, wiggling his eyebrows. Todoroki blinked twice, slow and confused. "I don't understand. Why would this be a date?" he asked, monotone. Bakugu's palm slammed onto the table so hard it rattled like the building might collapse. "It's not a DMN date," he roared. The room fell silent. Everyone stared. Bakugu's chest heaved and then his voice dropped into a frantic, too honest growl. "I'm not good at this. I'm trying to not screw this up, alright? I want him to." He cut himself off, teeth gritted like he was swallowing dynamite. "Be happy. Even if it's just once. Plus," Bakuga muttered, voice low but uncharacteristically shaky. "He said he wants to see the world as much as he can. He said it's not weird if he doesn't have much time left with the condition he has." Ciro, unusually quiet, leaned forward and lowered his voice. "Boss?" His brows pulled together. "I don't get it." Bakugu glanced at him, guarded. Ciro continued, tone serious for once. "Why does he talk like he's running out of time? Like he expects to die. His throat bobbed. What's really wrong with him? I thought he just had weak lungs. Bakuga's jaw clenched. He looked away, staring at the floor like it was easier than facing their eyes. Yeah, he muttered. His lungs are weak. Born that way. The doctors said if he pushes too far, if he overuses his lungs or gets caught in another attack like earlier, his voice dropped, rough and unwilling. It could lead to something worse. Maybe that's why he feels like he doesn't have much time left. Like every breath could be his last if he screws up. He exhaled shakily. Maybe that's why he wants to live as much as he can. Right now. Siro's shoulders sagged, realization sinking deep. DMN. Kirishima nodded firmly. Then we make this outing perfect. No mistakes. Uraraka's eyes sparkled as she leaned forward, voice bright with excitement. I have an idea. What if we take him somewhere quiet, away from the city? Somewhere with open air, mountains, rivers, maybe a small countryside town? Fresh air, nature. He can breathe, see the sky, and feel the wind without all the chaos. Bakuga's jaw tightened, but the edge in his expression softened, just a fraction. Away from the city, huh? I guess that makes sense. Less people, less chance of trouble. Siro nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, we can take a car, drive him there. Minimal strain, maximum scenery. Rivers, hills, open fields, it'll be peaceful. He can walk a little, sit by the water, maybe even see animals. Kirishima grinned, enthusiasm practically radiating. And we can plan little stops along the way. Small villages, scenic overlooks, maybe even a farm with cute animals. Stuff he'd probably never get to experience normally. Todoroki, ever calm and precise, added, we need to consider the terrain. Mountains, rivers, everything should be accessible. No sudden climbs or dangerous paths. Safety first. We can map it out, plan rest stops, and have contingencies if he gets tired or the weather changes. Mina twirled a strand of her hair, smirking. I can scout the area ahead of time, make sure there's nothing suspicious. And we can bring snacks, local treats from the countryside. Something fun, simple, and safe. Bakuga scoffed, voice sharp but tinged with disbelief. I never thought you guys could be, sometimes clever. All this time, you're idiots, but, DMN, maybe not all the time. Siro leaned back, smirking, unbothered. If we're idiots, boss, you'd never take us to work with you. Bakuga blinked, amber eyes narrowing at him, but there was a flicker of reluctant respect. He straightened his posture, amber eyes sharp as knives. Fine. I'll leave it to you guys for the planning. I want this settled by tonight. Tomorrow, we depart. He slammed a fist lightly on the table, punctuating the urgency. And Todoroki, I need you to choose the best men to guard this mansion while we're gone. Pick the ones you trust the most. No screw-ups. If anything happens here while we're out, it's on you. Todoroki inclined his head slightly, expression calm but resolute. Understood. I'll select the most capable men, ensure security protocols are reinforced, and coordinate shifts. The mansion will be secure. Bakuga's gaze shifted around the table, lingering on each squad member. As for the rest of you, don't just plan this outing. Think about every DMN detail. Roads, rest stops, food, shelter, medical kits, first aid. He's fragile. Uraraka clapped her hands together excitedly. Don't worry, boss. I already have a few spots in mind, and we can map a route that's scenic but easy for him to handle. Mountains, rivers, open fields. It'll be perfect for him to enjoy without overexerting himself. Bakuga exhaled sharply, the tension in his shoulders slightly easing, though his expression remained stern. Good. I'll trust you to make sure he comes back in one piece. Settle everything tonight. I don't want excuses tomorrow. Uraraka's eyes gleamed with determination. We'll make sure it's perfect, boss. He'll have the best day ever. Bakuga didn't waste time after the meeting. The moment he left the strategy room, his boots echoed sharply through the hallway as he headed straight for Midoriya's room. His chest felt tight again, that annoying pressure he refused to name. He stopped once in front of the door, hand hovering over the handle. For someone who ruled an entire city's shadows, this shouldn't have been so DMN hard. He knocked once. Midoriya stirred inside. "See, come in?" Bkdk pushed the door open. Midoriya was sitting up on the bed, blanket around his shoulders, the early evening light turning his curls a soft green gold. He looked smaller than he had any right to be in this massive room. Bkdk shut the door behind him. "We need to talk." Midoriya tensed slightly. "Did I do something wrong?" Bkdk scowled. "Stop assuming that." He walked closer, arms crossing automatically. "You said you wanted to see the world." Midoriya blinked. "Why yeah?" Bkdk stared at the wall instead of at him. "We're going tomorrow." For a second, the room was completely silent. Midoriya didn't process it right away. "Going?" he echoed softly. Bkdk finally looked at him. "Out of the city. Countryside. Don't worry, we already have a perfect plan for this trip." Midoriya's breath caught. You're serious?" Bkdk clicked his tongue. "I don't joke about this kind of thing." Midoriya's hands slowly tightened in the blanket. His lips trembled just a little. "You don't have to. I know you guys probably have other important things to do and I'm just a burden and—" Bkdk snapped, stepping closer. "You're not a burden." Midoriya froze. Bkdk gritted his teeth like the words physically hurt to say. "You want to live? Then live. I gave my word." Midoriya's eyes filled instantly. Not loud sobbing. Not dramatic crying. It started with a sharp, uneven breath he couldn't quite control. His lashes trembled. He blinked once, twice like he was trying to force the feeling back down where it belonged. His lips parted slightly, a quiet sound slipping out that wasn't quite a sob, not quite a gasp. His hands tightened in the blanket without him realizing. Then the tears came. They didn't fall fast. They slid slowly, silently, warm trails tracking down the soft curve of his cheeks. He didn't cover his face. Didn't turn away. He just sat there, eyes wide and shining, like he was afraid that if he moved even an inch, this fragile moment would shatter. Bkdk saw it all. I don't even know how to thank you." Bkdk panicked internally. "Please don't cry like that," he muttered, awkwardly turning his head. "It's annoying." Midoriya wiped his eyes quickly, laughing softly through the tears. "I've never really gone anywhere before. I always stayed close to home. Then tomorrow will be your first real trip." The mansion was unusually lively at dawn. Cars lined the front gates. Supplies were being loaded. Medical kits. Oxygen tanks. Extra blankets. Food packed with obsessive precision. Midoriya stepped out of his room slowly, wearing fresh clothes Uraraka had picked out for him, soft layers, warm but light, easy to breathe in. At the bottom of the stairs, the front gate stood wide open. And everyone was there. Kirishima was at the back of one of the black SUVs, effortlessly hoisting heavy bags like they weighed nothing, muscles flexing as he laughed loudly. "Man, we are overprepared. This is gonna be awesome." Mina stood on the hood of another car, dramatically holding 2 snack bags high in the air like trophies. "We take both. No arguing. Sweet and spicy." Zero was looping thick securing straps around the baggage racks with practiced ease, taping the last one tight before peering over at Mina. "You're gonna give the kid a sugar crash 2 minutes into the trip." Kaminari leaned lazily against the open driver's side door, sunglasses on way too early in the morning, sipping from a canned drink. Todoroki stood slightly apart, calm and focused, quietly checking weapons, radios, and emergency kits with precise care. Nothing about his movements was rushed. Every placement had intention. And Uraraka, she was bouncing on her heels near the front steps, hands clasped tightly in front of her chest like she might actually explode if the trip didn't start soon. "He's gonna love this," she whispered excitedly to no one in particular. Then, Bkdk stepped into view. Black jacket already on. Gloves secured. Expression stern, unreadable. He looked like this was just another mission. But his eyes lifted instantly straight to Midoriya. Their gazes locked. "You ready?" he called out. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was enormous. Midoriya swallowed. His fingers curled tightly into the fabric of his shirt as excitement and fear tangled together inside his chest. I think so. Bkdk walked toward him, boots steady against the stone. He stopped directly in front of Midoriya and held out a familiar jacket. Put this on. It's colder outside the city. Midoriya took it like it might disappear if he wasn't careful. His fingers brushed Bkdk's for just a second. Thank you, Midoriya whispered. They headed toward the car together. He opened the door for Midoriya himself. Midoriya paused before getting in. He looked back at the mansion. At the walls that once felt like a prison, and somehow became a place of safety. His chest swelled with something bittersweet. Bkdk noticed the way his shoulders stiffened. You good? He asked quietly. Midoriya nodded after a second. Yeah, just taking it in. Bkdk didn't rush him. Behind them, the others were already moving into position. Zero slid into the driver's seat, one arm resting lazily on the wheel as he checked the mirrors with uncharacteristic focus. Todoroki took the front passenger seat, calm and alert, eyes already scanning the surroundings through the windshield like a silent sentry. He adjusted the radio, the navigation screen glowing softly in front of him. Uraraka climbed into the back seat first, sliding in by the window and immediately turning to Midoriya with a gentle smile. Come sit here, Midoriya. The view will be really nice from this side. Midoriya hesitated a second, then carefully lowered himself into the seat beside her. His movements were slow, deliberate, a little unsure. The door shut softly beside him. Bkdk got in last, taking the seat on Midoriya's other side. The space closed in, not tight, not overwhelming but close enough that their shoulders almost brushed. Midoriya's heart skipped. Uraraka glanced between them with a knowing grin and buckled her seatbelt. This is officially the safest car in the entire city, she announced. Zero snorted. Yeah. Because if anyone even breathes wrong near Midoriya, Bkdk's gonna explode them. Bkdk clicked his tongue. Drive before I decide to. Bkdk's car rolled forward first. Slow, steady, controlled. Zero eased onto the road with careful precision, giving Bkdk's SUV a respectful amount of space as they cleared the gates and turned onto the open highway beyond the mansion walls. The second car followed. Kirishima was in the driver's seat, both hands on the wheel like he'd been waiting his entire life for this exact moment. All right, Operation Follow the Angry Blonde is officially underway. Mina laughed from the front passenger seat. That might be the most terrifying mission name you could have chosen. Kaminari sprawled comfortably in the back, kicking his feet up. If we lose them, I'm blaming your enthusiasm. Kirishima grinned in the mirror. Relax. I've got this. The vibration of the road hummed softly beneath the tires. Midoriya sat quietly between Uraraka and Bkdk, hands folded in his lap, eyes glued to the window. The city slowly pulled away behind them, the tall buildings shrinking, the noise fading, the air outside growing visibly clearer. The sky feels different, he murmured after a while. Uraraka smiled softly. Yeah. It always does once you leave the city. From the front seat, Zero glanced at the mirror. Second car's still with us. Kirishima's keeping a nice steady pace. Todoroki nodded. Good. This road is usually calm in the mornings. The car moved steadily along the widening road, the rhythm of the tires against the pavement soft and even. The city had thinned into stretches of quiet highway, the noise replaced by wind and distant birds. Uraraka shifted slightly in her seat. She'd been watching Midoriya out of the corner of her eye for a while now, how his gaze never stayed still, how wonder kept flickering across his face like he was afraid the world outside might vanish if he blinked too long. Hey, Midoriya, she said gently. He turned toward her at once. Why yes. She smiled warmly. What was it like, before you came here? Midoriya blinked, clearly not expecting the question. His fingers curled slightly in his lap. Before? Yeah, she said softly. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. I was just curious. There was no pressure in her voice. Just interest. Midoriya hesitated, eyes drifting back to the window as if searching for the right place to begin. I lost my mom when I was 16, he said quietly, voice barely above the hum of the tires. Since I was underage, I had to move into a house that the community set me up in. It wasn't bad, exactly. Just lonely. I didn't really go anywhere, didn't really see much outside of school or the streets nearby. Uraraka nodded slowly, her expression softening. That sounds really hard. I can't imagine what it must have been like. He took a quiet breath, eyes staring out the window as the trees blurred past. After I turned 18, since I was no longer underage, I had to live on my own. I started working full-time at a cafe. I couldn't afford to continue my studies, and I wasn't clever enough to get a sponsorship or scholarship. It was the only choice I had. So, my life became work. That's the only job I can handle with my condition right now. I don't have friends to hang out with, or anyone who really cares about me, or loves me. He let out a small, almost bitter laugh, but it quickly faded into silence. That's basically my life. Uraraka's hand instinctively went to rest on his arm, soft and warm. Midoriya, that sounds really lonely. I'm glad you're letting us be part of it now. You don't have to go through life alone anymore. Midoriya's fingers tightened slightly around the fabric of his jacket, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. I don't really know how to do this, having people care about me. It's new. Shiro, who had been quietly adjusting his seatbelt, leaned over with a grin. Hey, don't overthink it, man. You've got us now. Think of it like upgrading from solo mode to a full team party. We might be a little chaotic, but we're, harmless. Midoriya blinked, a small laugh escaping him. Team party, huh? I think I can try that. Todoroki, sitting in the front passenger seat, glanced back at him through the rearview mirror. His voice was calm, even, but carried an unmistakable note of sincerity. You don't have to try to handle everything alone anymore. If there's something you need, or if you're unsure, you can tell us. We'll figure it out together. Midoriya looked between the two of them, startled by the unexpected care. Why, you really mean that? Shiro leaned back in his seat, smirking. Of course we mean it. You're stuck with us now. Sorry, man. No refunds. Todoroki's eyes softened, just a fraction, and he added quietly, if you want, I can show you some routes I know in the countryside. There are quiet spots, rivers, places where you can rest and still see the sky. Midoriya's lips parted slightly, eyes shining. You do that for me? Todoroki inclined his head once. Just tell me if it's too much. I'll adjust. Midoriya felt warmth spread through his chest. I'd like that. Uraraka smiled softly, squeezing his arm gently. Shiro nudged him with a grin. See? Already making friends. Bakugo, sitting beside him, remained silent, but his eyes flicked toward Midoriya, an amber gaze sharp yet strangely protective. The faintest edge of a smile tugged at his lips, though he'd never admit it out loud. For the first time in a long while, the ride felt lighter. The car hummed along the quiet highway, the countryside slowly approaching. Midoriya's eyes flitted between the passing fields and the passengers beside him, still processing the warmth he was feeling. From the second car, Kaminari's voice crackled lightly over the radio. Yo, Todoroki. You there? How's the VIP looking? Don't tell me he's already crying or anything. Shiro laughed, leaning slightly toward the radio. Hey, easy there, Kaminari. He's doing fine. Kaminari's voice was playful, teasing. I just gotta make sure our special guest doesn't freak out in your fancy, serious car, Todoroki. You gotta interact. Don't just sit there all stoic like some robot bodyguard. Todoroki's calm voice responded, a slight edge of dry humor slipping through. I'm not a robot. And I have been interacting. Making sure he's comfortable. That counts as interaction. Kaminari laughed loudly. Oh, come on, that's like the bare minimum. You need to talk to him. Like a person. Ask about what he likes, what he wants to see. Don't just be Mr. Cool and silent. Todoroki glanced at Midoriya, who was staring out the window with wide, curious eyes. Midoriya, what do you want to see first? The river up ahead, or the little village on the side of the road? We can stop for either, depending on what you feel like. Midoriya blinked, surprised by the attention. Maybe the river first? I've never really seen one properly. Good choice, Todoroki said softly. Shiro grinned, glancing back at Midoriya. See, I told you, you're already making friends with the cold guy. He just doesn't do it out loud. You'll get used to it. The car rolled steadily along the highway, the river slowly coming into view, sparkling under the morning sun. Midoriya's eyes widened, pressed to the glass, taking in the gentle current and the trees lining the banks. Shiro leaned back in his seat, grinning. See that man? Pretty awesome, huh? Midoriya let out a small laugh, the sound soft but genuine. Yeah, it's really beautiful. The car rolled steadily along the highway, the river sparkling under the morning sun. Midoriya kept his eyes on the passing scenery, letting the gentle motion soothe him. Shiro glanced in the rearview mirror, smirking. Hey, boss, maybe say something to him. Even our Mr. Cool and Silent has a conversation with him. Bakuga's amber eyes snapped towards Shiro, jaw tight. Shut up. Shiro, hands still on the steering wheel, Shiro flicked his eyes to the rearview mirror, meeting Midoriya's reflection with a grin. Our boss is always like this. He's terrible at talking to people. He tilted his head slightly, still watching the road. He may look like a Pomeranian on the outside, but inside? He let out a dramatic sigh. Total softy. For a split second, the car froze. Midoriya blinked and laughed, a soft, surprised sound escaping his lips. Uraraka immediately covered her mouth, giggling. Even Todoroki let out the faintest huff of laughter, eyes softening just a fraction. Bakugo slowly turned his head towards Shiro. What did you just say? Shiro stiffened but still couldn't hide his grin. Pipoma, I'm gonna kill you. Midoriya laughed harder this time, shoulders shaking, the fear in his chest finally easing into something warm and real. The SUV tires crunched along the gravel road, lined with wide green fields dotted with wildflowers. The mountains rose gently in the distance, their peaks shrouded in morning mist, and rivers meandered through the valleys, catching the sunlight like scattered jewels. Midoriya, eyes wide, absorbing the vastness of the world outside. The city and its walls, the chaos and weight, all seemed impossibly far away now. Uraraka squeezed his shoulder gently. See? Told you it'd be nice. He nodded slowly, almost reverently. It really is. The SUV slowed as they approached the guest house, a modest, warm structure nestled among emerald paddy fields that swayed gently in the breeze. A clear river curved around the property, glinting in the morning sun, and a mountain loomed in the distance, majestic and calm. It's so beautiful, Midoriya whispered, voice barely audible over the soft hum of the car. His hands curled lightly in his lap, gripping the fabric of his jacket like he might vanish if he let go. Bakugo's amber eyes flicked to him, sharp but attentive. He felt a pang of something he didn't have a name for, an echo of longing he'd buried under years of control and violence. He hadn't realized how starved he was for this quiet, for a world that wasn't shadowed by orders, threats, or blood. The rustle of the fields, the sunlight glinting off the river, the mountains standing still and unwavering, it was all so alien, so impossibly free. Midoriya sat quietly, eyes glued to the passing scenery. The city slowly faded behind them, replaced by open fields, winding rivers, and distant mountains bathed in sunlight. The hum of the tires on the road was soft, steady, and comforting. After a moment, he shifted slightly, glancing at Bakugo with hesitant curiosity. Katsuki? Bakugo, focused on the road ahead, didn't look at him. What? Midoriya's small fingers fiddled with the edge of his jacket. Could you roll down the window? I want to feel the breeze. With a low grunt, Bakugo pressed the button, and the window beside Midoriya slowly descended. A warm, earthy breeze immediately swept through, brushing against Midoriya's face and rustling his hair. He leaned forward slightly, letting it wash over him, eyes wide as they sparkled with uncontained wonder. I never thought I'd see anything like this, he whispered, voice soft, almost reverent. The mountains, the river, it's like another world. Bakugo's gaze softened imperceptibly. Yeah, he muttered, though his voice was rough and distant. He turned his eyes to the horizon, watching the mountain bathe in sunlight, and felt an unfamiliar warmth rise in his chest. Years of running, fighting, and surviving had left him numb to beauty. But here, in this rare, unspoiled place, it reached him anyway. The car pulled up to the guest house. Kirishima and the others were already unloading the supplies, laughter and chatter filling the air. Mina waved dramatically, holding a basket of freshly bought local snacks. Shiro and Kaminari were checking the cars, ensuring everything was secure. Todoroki stood near the entrance, hands tucked into his coat, surveying the surroundings with practiced calm. Midoriya hesitated at the door, taking a small step out. He inhaled deeply, eyes closing for a moment as if memorizing the scent of earth and river, the warmth of the sun on his skin. Midoriya laughed softly, a sound that made Bakugo's chest shift uncomfortably. I feel like I can breathe for the first time in forever. Bakugo's jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't interrupt. The sound of Midoriya laughing softly, genuine, struck something deep inside him. He shifted his weight, his boots crunching softly against the gravel. For a moment, he just watched, the way Midoriya's eyes closed, the sunlight painting his curls gold, the breeze teasing at the edges of his jacket. It's really peaceful here, Midoriya murmured, opening his eyes and glancing around. I never thought the world could feel like this. Bakugo's amber eyes swept over the fields, the river, the mountains. He'd seen cities burn, alleys run red, faces twisted in fear or greed. He'd lived in darkness and chaos for as long as he could remember. But this quiet, the way the light spilled over the hills, the faint rustle of reeds. In the wind, it felt like something he'd been missing, though he hadn't known it. They stood there a moment longer, the world wide and open, filled with soft light and gentle wind. Bakugo could feel the tension in his shoulders slowly uncoil, something he hadn't realized he'd carried for years. And for once, he didn't fight it. Midoriya tilted his head toward him again, eyes shining. Katsuki, thank you for this. Bakugo's chest tightened, and he forced a grunt. Don't mention it, he said, but inside, a small, unfamiliar warmth spread through him. Uraraka twirled slightly, spinning on the soft earth. Come on, Midoriya. Look over here. There's a little path by the river. We can walk along it and see some fish. Midoriya followed her, hesitating only slightly, until his fingers brushed against Bakugo's arm as he passed. Can I? He asked softly. Bakugo's amber eyes flicked toward him. Yeah, don't fall in. The boy smiled sheepishly and carefully stepped forward, feeling the earth soft beneath his feet. The group laughed softly as they made their way toward the riverbank. Shiro, always ready for mischief, pointed to a small cluster of ducks floating near the edge. Hey, Midoriya, bet you can't get close without scaring them away. Midoriya laughed quietly, crouching gently at the edge and holding out a hand. The ducks quacked and paddled slowly toward him, seemingly unafraid. I think they like me, he whispered, eyes shining. Kirishima and Mina were already sprinting across the fields, racing to see who could reach a small cluster of trees first. Mina yelled dramatically, "Winner gets the first taste of snacks." Kirishima laughed, shouting back, "No way! I've been training my legs for this exact moment." Kaminari, sitting on a nearby fence, waved lazily. You guys are ridiculous. Midoriya and Uraraka exchanged amused glances. They're really competitive, huh? Uraraka whispered, giggling. Midoriya nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. It's kind of fun to watch. Shiro, never missing an opportunity for mischief, picked up a stick and jogged alongside the duo, pretending it was a javelin. On your marks, get set, bam. He gently tapped Mina on the shoulder as he ran past, laughing at her exaggerated stumble. Mina spun dramatically, pointing at him. Traitor! You're trying to sabotage me. Kaminari, lounging on a rock nearby, raised an eyebrow and called out lazily, Honestly, you guys are ridiculous. This is literally a flat field. Just walk there and eat your snacks. Kirishima glanced over his shoulder mid-sprint. Hey, where's the fun in that? You gotta put your legs to the test. speed, stamina, spirit. Bakugu's amber eyes flicked toward the scene, arms crossed, scowling, but there was a faint twitch at the corner of his mouth, barely noticeable. Idiots, he muttered under his breath, though his gaze lingered on the ridiculous spectacle. Midoriya, still in the middle with Uraraka, let out a quiet laugh. They're like kids, he whispered. Uraraka nudged him. Exactly. That's the point, today's all about fun. No rules, no stress, just being here. Mina, nearly at the cluster of trees, shouted over her shoulder, "You're not gonna beat me, Kirishima. I have the snack power." Kirishima dug his heels in, grin wide. "You're underestimating my training regimen." He stretched out a hand, almost close enough to tag her, but Mina spun away at the last second, laughing hysterically. Midoriya leaned a little forward from his seat. "It's nice seeing people just laugh like this," he murmured. Bakugu's gaze softened slightly, though he didn't look at Midoriya. "Yeah, seeing them like this, it's different," he muttered, a little tight in his chest. Years of shadows, threats, and strict control had never allowed him this, just chaos and joy without consequence. He let his eyes follow the sprinting figures, feeling a strange lightness he hadn't experienced in years. By the time Mina and Kirishima collapsed under the shade of the trees, panting and giggling, Zero plopped dramatically on the ground beside them. Uraraka laughed softly, glancing at Midoriya. "It's fun just seeing them like this, isn't it?" Midoriya nodded, eyes bright. It's nice. They're really happy." Even Bakugu, standing a little apart with his arms crossed, let a small, almost imperceptible smirk tug at his lips. He didn't say anything, but for the first time in a long while, he felt relaxed. The fields, the breeze, the laughter, it was different. Peaceful. Somehow, it hit him in a way the city never could. The sun climbed higher, warm and golden, casting long shadows across the paddy fields. After a short walk from the guest house, the squad reached a bend in the river where the water widened into a gentle, shallow pool. Stones lined the bank, and the soft grass offered a perfect spot for sitting. Kirishima spread a large picnic blanket with exaggerated care, placing baskets of snacks, sandwiches, and fresh fruit neatly on top. Mina immediately dove in, pulling out a small box of sweets. "Who's ready for a sugar overload?" she asked with a theatrical flourish. Zero leaned back on his elbows, watching the river ripple in the breeze. "Honestly, this is perfect. Not too hot, not too crowded, just peaceful." Uraraka flopped down beside Midoriya, patting the blanket. "Come on, sit here. You've got the best view of the water." Midoriya lowered himself carefully onto the grass, the blanket rustling beneath him. He inhaled deeply, the scent of grass and river filling his lungs. Bakugu stood nearby, arms crossed, watching everyone with a faintly guarded expression. But even he seemed softened by the gentle sunlight on the water, the way the trees bent with the breeze, and the occasional laugh from the group. After a moment of quiet, Midoriya tilted his head, curiosity bubbling up. "Can I ask something?" Bakugu's brow shot up, and he glanced at him. "What?" Midoriya fidgeted slightly with the edge of his jacket. How did all of you meet each other? And how did you guys end up working together?" His voice was soft, careful, as if stepping into unknown territory. Uraraka smiled warmly. "Well, we've all kind of known each other for a while. We were friends, allies, part of the same group. And we all trust Bakugu." She glanced at Bakugu, who looked away, scowling. "Even if he doesn't always make it easy." Zero leaned forward lazily, resting his chin on his hand. "Yeah, bosses, will he scare you? But he's loyal to the people he cares about. And once you earn that respect, you stick with him. It's that simple." Kirishima nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. I mean, I met Boss back when we were in the same, let's call it fieldwork. He saved me more times than I can count. And, well, you just don't forget that kind of thing." Mina leaned back, chewing on a small pastry. "I follow him because you know he won't let anyone you care about get hurt." She winked at Bakugu, who blinked, clearly unamused but secretly, maybe pleased. Todoroki spoke last, calm and precise, voice carrying over the gentle lapping of the river. I've known him since we were children. My family worked with his closely. I grew up seeing his strength, his determination, and the way he protects those he cares about. Because of that, I trust him. And because I trust him, I've chosen to be loyal. That's enough reason for me. Midoriya nodded, absorbing each story, then glanced at Kaminari. And, what about you? Kaminari shifted slightly on the blanket, scratching the back of his head with an easy grin. Me? I met him during one of his missions, I guess you could say. He needed backup, and it helped. Kinda got thrown into the chaos with him. What? I realized he doesn't leave people behind. Ever. So, I stuck around. Midoriya nodded slowly, a small smile tugging at his lips. I think that's really amazing. You all really believe in him. Kirishima, sprawled out on the blanket beside Mina, chuckled. Believing in him's easy. Surviving him, that's the challenge. Mina giggled, rolling her eyes. He's scary sometimes, but he's also dependable. That counts for a lot. Zero leaned forward, picking up a small stone and tossing it into the river, watching it skip twice. Honestly, he can be a pain in the butt, but he's got a good heart. That's why we stick around. Bkdk, standing slightly apart, muttered under his breath, loudmouth. But his amber eyes flicked to Kaminari, a faint acknowledgement there that he appreciated the loyalty. Midoriya turned to Bkdk, a shy smile on his face. And you think about all that? About how you brought everyone together? Bkdk scowled, looking away, arms crossed, though his voice was quieter than usual. Maybe. Doesn't mean I'm gonna talk about it. Uraraka smiled warmly. That's Bkdk for you. Tough on the outside, but he's worth it. Midoriya nodded, feeling the warmth of the river breeze mix with the soft laughter of the group. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he could truly belong somewhere. The afternoon passed in light-hearted chatter. They skipped stones on the river, teased each other about who could eat the most sweets, and shared stories of past missions, some daring, some ridiculous. The laughter faded slightly as Zero kicked off his shoes, wading carefully into the shallow edge of the river. All right, who's brave enough to join me? He called, splashing water lightly with his hand. Kirishima grinned, standing up immediately. You mean me? Watch and learn. He stepped confidently into the cool water, letting it ripple around his boots. Mina, never one to be outdone, followed suit with a dramatic splash that sent water flying towards Zero. Midoriya stopped right at the edge of the river, the rippling water so close it almost touched his toes. He stared at it like it was something far bigger than it seemed. The others' laughter echoed around him, but his hands trembled slightly as he fiddled with his sleeves. He looked up at Bkdk, voice barely above a whisper. Keiketsuki, do you think I can? I'm not sure if I should. Those wide, nervous green eyes locked onto Bkdk's. Eyes asking for safety. Permission. Bkdk clicked his tongue, stepping closer until his shadow overlapped Midoriya's. His voice was rough, but not unkind. Teeth, quit overthinking. He reached out, a hand hovering stiffly near Midoriya's back, close enough to be felt, not close enough to be noticed by the others. You won't drown standing in knee-deep water, nerd. The beat. His gaze sharpened with something protective, almost fierce. Just get in. I'm right here. I won't let anything happen to you. Midoriya swallowed, taking a deep breath, then gingerly stepped in. The water swirled around his legs, sending a shiver up his spine. He glanced at Bkdk, who was watching him like a hawk, jaw tight but stance relaxed, pretending not to care, yet clearly alert. See? Bkdk said, smirking faintly. Told you. Easy. Uraraka, Mina, and Kirishima exchanged mischievous glances. Mina whispered to Kirishima and Zero, who exchanged wicked grins. With a coordinated shove, the three pushed Bkdk from behind, just enough to splash him fully. Bkdk yelped and splashed forward, but instead of falling he waded fully into the river, standing chest-deep in the water. The group erupted into laughter, cheering at the rare sight of him completely in the river. He glared at the trio, but the faint twitch of a smirk betrayed his amusement. Idiots. Todoroki, who had been quietly observing from the bank, stepped in smoothly, water barely reaching his thighs. He glanced at Midoriya with a small, encouraging nod. You'll be fine. Just move slowly, he said calmly, his voice steady over the gentle ripple of the river. Midoriya nodded, taking a deep breath, then stepped further in, water swirling around his waist now. It feels amazing, he whispered, spinning slowly to let the current brush past him. The group spent the afternoon splashing each other, skipping stones, and laughing. Mina twirled dramatically, sending water flying towards Shiro and Kaminari, who retaliated gleefully. Kirishima, ever competitive, challenged Todoroki to a splash duel, and Todoroki responded with calm, calculated arcs of water that sent Kirishima laughing and sputtering. Bkdkanimelover stood slightly apart at first, arms crossed, but when Kaminari and Shiro snuck up to splash him, he yelped and lunged after them, water spraying in every direction. Midoriya couldn't help but laugh as he dodged small splashes, feeling completely free and alive. By the time the sun began to lean toward the horizon, the group collapsed along the riverbank, dripping, exhausted, and covered in water and laughter. Even Bkdkanimelover, chest deep in the river and soaked, let a faint, begrudging smile show. For the first time in a long while, the chaos around him felt light, harmless, and joyful. They stayed by the river longer than Midoriya expected. Not talking much. Just existing. The water moved lazily over smooth stones, the sound steady and calming. Midoriya sat on a flat rock near the edge, boots planted carefully in the dirt. He dipped his fingers into the cold water once, then pulled back with a small hiss. Cold, he murmured. He sat like that for a while. Whined through the grass. Sunlight warming their backs. For a few precious minutes, Midoriya almost forgot the tightness that lived permanently in his chest. Almost. It started subtly. A breath that didn't quite fill properly. A second that came faster than the first. Midoriya frowned, resting a hand lightly against his sternum. He told himself it was nothing. Just the cool air. Just standing up too fast earlier. He shifted his weight to rise and the dizziness hit. Not enough to knock him down. Enough to warn him. He paused, eyes closing briefly. Bkdkanimelover noticed the pause immediately. You good? He asked, sharp without meaning to be. I think so, Midoriya answered, a little too quickly. Then his breathing hitched again, short, uneven this time. His shoulders lifted and dropped in shallow motions that didn't seem to satisfy his lungs. Bkdkanimelover stood up at once. Bkdkanimelover was in front of him now, crouching, close enough that Midoriya could see the tight line of worry in his jaw. Don't push it, Bkdkanimelover said more quietly. Midoriya nodded, focusing. But the air felt thin. His fingers curled into the fabric of his jacket without him meaning to. His breaths grew quicker, chest working harder for less return. Bkdkanimelover's hand came to his back, firm, steady. Not gripping. Just there. Easy, he muttered. You got it. Midoriya slowed his breathing deliberately, copying the pace Bkdkanimelover set without even realizing he was doing it. After a minute, the burning eased. Not gone. But manageable. Midoriya sagged slightly in relief. Bkdkanimelover stayed where he was. You should have said something sooner, he muttered. I didn't want to ruin the moment, Midoriya admitted quietly. Bkdkanimelover's eyes flicked to him. Your lungs trying to shut down ruins the moment a lot more. Midoriya smiled weakly. Bkdkanimelover didn't smile back, but his hand stayed on Midoriya's back a second longer than necessary before he pulled away. Come on, Bkdkanimelover said. Let's head back, you need to rest. He helped Midoriya to his feet, not lifting him, not carrying him. Just steadying him by the elbow until he was sure his legs were solid. Bkdkanimelover straightened once Midoriya was steady, sharp eyes already scanning the area. Then he turned his head sharply toward the others down the riverbank. We're heading back, he called out. No explanation. No argument allowed. Kirishima looked up first. Already? Bkdkanimelover shot him a look. Yeah, okay, yeah, got it, Kirishima said quickly, holding up his hands. Uraraka was already moving closer, her worry obvious. Midoriya, Are you sure you're okay? I'll be fine after some rest, Midoriya said, offering a small smile. Todoroki didn't ask questions. He just nodded once and turned back toward the path. The walk back to the guest house was slower than before. Bkdk stayed beside Midoriya the entire time, not rushing him, not letting him fall behind either. When the path sloped upward, Bkdk drifted closer, close enough that his arm hovered near Midoriya's without quite touching. Just in case. By the time they reached the wooden steps of the guest house, no one spoke. The inside of the guest house was cool and dim after the bright riverbank. Sunlight filtered through the paper windows in soft, muted lines across the tatami. He guided Midoriya straight down the short hallway instead, sliding open the door to the small room that had been set aside for him earlier. Your room, Bkdk said simply. Midoriya blinked in mild surprise. Oh. Lie down, Bkdk added. Midoriya hesitated only a second before obeying. The moment his body met the futon, the last of his strength seemed to drain out of him. His chest still felt tight, not alarming, just heavy. Tired. Bkdk grabbed a blanket from the corner and draped it over him with more care than force. There? He muttered. Midoriya blinked up at him. You're surprisingly gentle today. Bkdk scowled. Don't make it weird. Midoriya smiled faintly but let his eyes close. Bkdk lingered by the doorway for a moment. He slid the door shut quietly and turned down the hallway. The living room was tense when he entered. Kirishima was standing near the low table with his arms crossed. Shiro leaned against the wall, unusually quiet. Kaminari sat on the floor beside Mina, fidgeting with his sleeve. Uraraka hovered near the window, eyes darting toward the hallway. Todoroki stood slightly apart from the others, watching Bkdk closely. The moment Bkdk stepped in, every pair of eyes locked onto him. No one spoke at first. Then Kirishima broke the silence, voice low but worried. Is Midoriya gonna be okay, boss? Yeah, Bkdk answered shortly. He's resting now. Silence settled again. Bkdk's eyes moved over each of them, Kirishima's tense shoulders, Kaminari's unease, Mina and Uraraka still hovering with worry, Todoroki's silent watchfulness. Then he said more quietly, You guys didn't come out here to stress yourselves sick. They blinked. Then Bkdk exhaled and straightened. You guys can rest too, he said gruffly. We only have this chance once in a while. Kirishima blinked. Boss. Bkdk looked away slightly. Rest. Sleep properly. That's an order. You earned the break. Mina's eyes immediately went glassy. You're actually really sweet when you're not yelling. Bkdk bristled. Don't push it. Kaminari grinned. Too late, we're emotionally moved. Bkdk scowled but he didn't argue. Uraraka looked back toward the hallway one more time. If he needs anything, then I'll handle it, Bkdk said. Slowly, the tension in the room eased. Everyone began to scatter, Kirishima heading toward the porch, Shiro and Kaminari toward the tatami area, Mina pulling Uraraka along with her. Todoroki remained still for a moment after the others dispersed, watching Bkdk with a look that was too observant for Bkdk's comfort. Bkdk crossed his arms. What? Spit it out. Todoroki stepped closer. You care about him. Bkdk clicked his tongue, eyes narrowing. Of course I do. He's my responsibility. But it feels like more than that, Todoroki replied simply. Bkdk's jaw tightened. I don't know what dumb narrative you're creating in your head, but I'm not interested. Todoroki didn't flinch. Instead, he looked toward the hallway where Midoriya rested. When I was younger, he said quietly, I used to hate coming to your house. Bkdk blinked. The hell does that have to do with anything? Todoroki's gaze lowered for a moment, searching a memory that seemed to weigh more than he wanted to admit. It was noisy. Your mother laughed easily. Your father talked too loud. You argued with both of them constantly. A small exhale. Bkdk stared, thrown, unsure where this was going. My home was silent. All the time. And the silence wasn't calm. It was dangerous. His jaw tightened for just a breath. I didn't understand it back then, but when I visited you, even the chaos felt safer than the quiet I grew up in. Okay? Thanks for trauma dumping, I guess? he muttered. Then you became the boss. And you changed. You shut everything off that made you feel like that kid I used to visit. The one who lived in a home full of noise and warmth. Bkdk swallowed, irritation fading into something complicated. You had to bury everything that made you feel human, Todoroki said, each word careful. Warmth became a weakness. Attachment became a risk. If you cared too much, someone could use it against you. Bkdk's eyes narrowed, defensive but less sure. I had to. I know, Todoroki answered. This world doesn't let us be human. You built walls so high no one could reach you. You stopped trusting anyone to hold even a small piece of you. Bkdk didn't deny it. But Midoriya, Todoroki continued, gaze steady, he looks at you like you're still that kid. Like you're someone worth talking to, not just someone to fear. Bkdk's breath caught, sharp, quickly masked. He's not scared of the way you shout, Todoroki went on. Because he understands what your anger is protecting. He sees the intention behind everything you do. He moved to pass Bkdk, pausing just at his shoulder. You don't have to keep everyone out forever. His tone softened, not gentle, true. Let someone in while you still can. Then he walked away, leaving Bkdk standing alone in the quiet he had chosen for himself, realizing for the first time how cold it was. Bkdk stayed rooted to the spot long after Todoroki disappeared down the hall. His jaw was clenched so tight it ached. He hated how the words lingered. He hated how they made sense. He hated that someone like Todoroki noticed any of that at all. Eventually he moved. Not because he wanted to, but because he couldn't sit with his own thoughts anymore. His feet led him down the hall quietly, almost on instinct. The evening settled over the guest house like a soft, warm blanket. The sun had dipped below the hills, leaving a sky painted in shades of amber and violet. Smoke from the small barbecue pit curled lazily into the air, carrying the scent of sizzling meat and vegetables. Kirishima was already at the grill, tongs in hand, flipping skewers with exaggerated enthusiasm. Careful! You don't want to burn it, he called over his shoulder to Kaminari, who was hovering a little too close, trying to help but mostly just talking. Mina was perched on the edge of the porch, trying to thread vegetables onto skewers without stabbing her fingers, while Uraraka fussed over a small bowl of marinated meat. Todoroki stood slightly apart, quietly peeling corn and lining them neatly on a plate, glancing at the group with a faint, half-amused expression. Bkdk appeared at the top of the porch steps, carrying a tray of drinks with his usual gruff efficiency. His eyes scanned the group, catching Midoriya leaning back against the railing, still pale but looking more like himself. Here, Bkdk muttered, dropping the tray beside him. Drink. Don't spill it. Midoriya blinked up at him, a small smile tugging at his lips. Thanks, he said softly. The air was filled with the cheerful clatter of cooking and the occasional teasing shout. Kirishima laughed too loudly when Kaminari accidentally dropped a skewer. Mina giggled at the minor chaos, nudging Uraraka, who rolled her eyes but smiled. Siro leaned against the railing, grinning as he playfully argued with Kaminari about who was the better grill assistant, occasionally tossing a skewered veggie onto the plate from across the porch. The sun had fully disappeared now, replaced by a blanket of stars above the hills. The air cooled, carrying the smell of smoke and grilled food. Midoriya took a deep breath, tasting the smoke and warmth and something softer, comfort. Kirishima called out cheerfully, "All right. Who wants the first skewer?" Bkdk didn't answer immediately. He looked toward Midoriya, still leaning on the railing, then shrugged. "Give to him first," he muttered, tossing a skewer in Midoriya's direction with a flick of his wrist. "Thanks," Midoriya said again, cheeks warming slightly as he caught it. The group settled around the fire pit, plates clattering and conversations spilling over each other. Laughter bubbled more freely now, the earlier tension loosening with every passing moment. Bkdk shifted his weight slightly, jaw tightening. He glanced at Midoriya, green eyes catching the glow of the firelight. Todoroki's words echoed too clearly in his head. "He's not scared of you." Bkdk clicked his tongue softly, irritated at himself. "Hey, nerd," he said, voice rougher than he intended, drawing Midoriya's attention. "Yes," Midoriya answered, cheeks still faintly flushed from the warmth of the fire and the skewer exchange. Bkdk hesitated, hands tightening briefly at his sides. "Can I ask you something?" Midoriya nodded, sensing the seriousness behind Bkdk's usual gruff tone. "Of course." Bkdk's eyes flicked away toward the fire, then back. "Are you still afraid of me?" The words hung in the air. Midoriya blinked. "Honestly, I think I'm no longer scared of you," he said softly. "Why would I be? When you do all of this for me? I don't know. I just had this gut feeling that you're not a bad person." Bkdk's jaw tightened. He looked away quickly, pretending to inspect the fire, but his chest felt heavier than it should. "Other people would probably be freaking out in my place," Midoriya continued, voice quiet but steady. "Yeah, because we never really know what the future holds. And usually, if you get caught by the Mafia, I'd say it's almost impossible to stay alive. But somehow, when I'm with you, instead of being live, I get to feel a new life." Bkdk's fingers flexed at his sides. He didn't know how to respond, not really. The words lingered in his chest, heavy and unrelenting. "You actually mean that?" he asked finally, voice low, almost rough with something he couldn't. Midoriya nodded, looking down at his hands for a moment before meeting Bkdk's gaze again. "I do. I trust you. More than I've trusted anyone in a long time." Bkdk blinked. He opened his mouth, then closed it, jaw tight. In it," he muttered, more to himself than to Midoriya. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to shake off the weight of it all, the vulnerability he wasn't used to facing. Midoriya shifted slightly closer, emboldened by the pause. You don't have to be that scary boss all the time. I know you're still but the way you take care of everyone, even me, it shows who you really are." Bkdk looked away again, staring into the dying embers of the fire. "Don't start making it all sentimental, nerd." Midoriya smiled faintly, and the warmth of it made Bkdk's chest tighten again. "I'm just being honest. You deserve to hear it." Bkdk's jaw loosened slightly, a small exhale escaping him. "Fine. But don't think I'm gonna go soft or anything." "I wouldn't want you to," Midoriya said softly, and it was quiet, but it carried more weight than either of them expected. For a few moments, they just sat like that, close, the night wrapping around them, the smell of smoke and grilled food lingering in the air. No words were necessary, the silence itself was gentle, a small understanding between them. The night air had cooled, carrying the scent of smoke and grilled food, the stars blinking faintly above the hills. Midoriya's eyelids grew heavy, the warmth of the fire and the soft chatter of the group lulling him into a calm he hadn't felt all day. He shifted slightly, leaning more against the railing, shoulders relaxing, the tension from earlier slowly unwinding. Bkdk noticed immediately. His sharp eyes softened ever so slightly as he watched Midoriya's head droop, the small rise and fall of his chest slower now, rhythmic, almost hypnotic in its steadiness. "Hey," Bkdk murmured, voice low, careful, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the moment. "Don't fall asleep out here." Midoriya's lips parted slightly in a sleepy smile, barely audible. "I'll be fine." Bkdk's jaw tightened, and for a fleeting second he considered scooping Midoriya up and carrying him inside. He didn't. Instead, he leaned slightly closer, letting Midoriya's shoulder brush against his side more firmly, steadying him without words. Midoriya let out a small, content sigh and slowly, almost imperceptibly, nodded. His green eyes fluttered closed, and the soft weight of sleep tugged at him. His head tilted, ever so slightly, resting lightly against Bkdk's arm. Bkdk froze for a moment, staring at him, chest tightening at how peaceful he looked. "Teeth, idiot," he muttered under his breath, but there was no harshness in it. He shifted subtly, giving Midoriya a little more support, his hand resting near the railing without moving the boy. Zero, noticing the scene from a few feet away, let out a quiet whistle. "Whoa, look at you two." Bkdk shot him a glare sharp enough to make him duck behind Kaminari, muttering something about idiots. Midoriya let out a small, soft hum in his sleep, the faintest hint of a smile on his lips. The night felt gentle around them, a rare quiet, the chaos of the day replaced with a shared, unspoken understanding. Bkdk stayed where he was, rigid but watchful, keeping an almost imperceptible distance that allowed Midoriya to drift fully into sleep. The fire crackled, the stars shimmered, and for the first time in a long while, the world felt a little safer. Morning arrived with pale mountain light filtering through the paper windows, soft and quiet. The guest house stirred slowly, low footsteps in the hall, muted voices, the clink of cups somewhere in the kitchen. Outside, the mountains stood tall and endless, their peaks brushing against drifting clouds. Midoriya sat near the open window, knees pulled to his chest beneath a thin blanket. The wind carried the scent of pine and cold stone. He watched the mountains like they were something sacred. Bkdk noticed. "You've been staring at the outside for too long," he muttered from where he leaned against the doorframe. Midoriya glanced back, startled, then smiled faintly. "It feels unreal," he admitted. "Like a painting." Bkdk snorted. "It's just a pile of rocks." Midoriya hesitated. Then quietly, "They're climbing it today, aren't they?" Bkdk's eyes sharpened. "Yeah. And you're not." The answer came too fast. Midoriya's fingers tightened in his blanket. "Why not?" Bkdk straightened. "Don't you remember what happened to you yesterday?" "I'm better today," Midoriya said gently. "I slept well. I haven't been dizzy." "That doesn't mean your lungs magically turned into steel," Bkdk snapped. Midoriya lowered his gaze. For a moment, it looked like he'd let it go. Then he said, barely above a whisper, "I want to try." Bkdk froze. "No." His voice was absolute. Midoriya looked up. "Katsuki." "I said no," he cut in sharply. "Don't even start." Midoriya swallowed. "I won't push too hard. I'll stop if I need to. His voice wavered, but he forced it steady. "I just want to reach the top once." Silence fell between them. Outside, Kirishima's laughter rang out as he joked with Kaminari about who would reach the summit first. The sound felt distant. Unreal. Midoriya's voice dropped, vulnerable now. "Katsuki, I don't know how many chances like this I'll get." Bkdk's jaw tightened. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" Midoriya looked away, hands trembling faintly. "This might be my only chance to do something like this." Bkdk's chest twisted painfully. "You sound like you're saying goodbye." "I'm not," Midoriya said quickly. "I just don't want to regret being too afraid to try." Bkdk turned his face away, teeth grinding. He hated this. Hated the tremor in Midoriya's voice. Hated the truth hiding inside his words. "You could collapse up there," Bkdk said coldly. "There's no hospital on the mountain." "I know," Midoriya whispered. "And you still want to go." Midoriya nodded. Bkdk stared at him for a long moment, really stared. At the slight frame. The too thin shoulders. The quiet determination in his eyes that had survived everything else. Bkdk exhaled hard, rubbing a hand over his face. "If I say yes, you follow every DMN rule I give you." "I will," Midoriya said instantly. "You slow down when I tell you to." "Yes." "You stop the second you can't breathe." "Yes." Bkdk hesitated. Then, bitterly, "And if you collapse, I'm carrying. You're dumb but back down whether you like it or not." Midoriya's eyes softened. "Okay." Bkdk turned toward the door. "This is it. Only this once." Midoriya's voice followed him, quiet but full of something fragile and grateful. "Thank you." Bkdk didn't answer. But he didn't change his mind either. The trail began gently, winding through tall pines and soft-packed earth. Morning sunlight filtered through the branches in shifting gold patterns, dappling the path and everyone walking it. The air smelled clean, pine resin, cold stone, and distant mist. Kirishima stretched his arms high as they reached the trailhead. "Man, I needed this. Fresh air, no bullets flying, this is the life." Kaminari grinned immediately. "Say that again when we're halfway up and your legs are begging for mercy." "I'm built differently," Kirishima said proudly. Mina skipped ahead a few steps, spinning around with dramatic flair. "Race you to the first marker," she challenged, tugging Uraraka along before she could protest. "W, Mina?" Uraraka laughed, stumbling after her. Todoroki walked at an even pace near the back, hands buried in his jacket sleeves, eyes scanning the trail with quiet focus. Every now and then, his gaze flicked, not at the mountain, but at Midoriya. Bkdkanimelover walked directly beside him. Not a step ahead. Not a step behind. Midoriya tried not to think about that too much. At first, he really did feel okay. The climb was shallow, the trail forgiving. His muscles warmed gradually, and the crisp air filled his lungs in steady, controlled breaths. He focused on that rhythm. He even laughed once when Kirishima nearly tripped over a loose root. "Careful," Midoriya called lightly. Kirishima grinned. "Don't worry, Midoriya. I built differently." Bkdkanimelover shot him a glare. "Watch your DMN footing." Midoriya smiled. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The trail steepened just a little. Midoriya's breathing changed first. Not dramatically. Just thinner. Each breath didn't seem to go quite as deep as he expected. His steps grew just a fraction shorter. Bkdkanimelover felt it immediately, the shift in pace, the subtle hesitation before each rise in the trail. Bkdkanimelover glanced sideways. "You slowing down already?" Midoriya startled slightly. "And no, I'm fine," he answered quickly, forcing a brighter tone. "Just pacing myself like you said." Bkdkanimelover grunted. "Good. Keep it that way." They continued. Ahead, Mina and Uraraka had stopped near a widening overlook, waiting for the others to catch up. The view opened suddenly, rolling mountains layered in soft blue haze, clouds drifting lazily between peaks. "Oh wow," Uraraka breathed. "This is beautiful." Kaminari leaned over the edge carefully. "Feels like one wrong step and boom, dramatic fall." "Don't manifest that," Siro said flatly. Midoriya reached the overlook last. When he stopped, the world tilted just slightly, just a brief swim of light at the edges of his vision. He steadied himself with a hand against the railing, hiding the motion behind the excuse of admiring the view. Bkdkanimelover noticed the hand. "You dizzy?" Midoriya hesitated one fraction of a second too long. Just lightheaded for a second. It passed. Bkdkanimelover's jaw tightened. "We stop here for 2 minutes." "I'm really okay." That wasn't a suggestion. Kirishima dropped onto a rock nearby. "Break already? I thought I was the first one who'd need it." Bkdkanimelover shot him a look. "Shut up and drink water." Uraraka immediately held out her bottle toward Midoriya. "Here, please." Midoriya accepted it with a small, grateful smile. He took careful sips, trying to keep his breathing even. The cold water helped a little. But there was a faint ache blooming now beneath his ribs, deep and dull. Not pain. Pressure. Todoroki stepped closer, voice quiet. "You look like you're cold." Midoriya blinked at them, surprised. "I am." Bkdkanimelover noticed that too. The climb resumed. This time, the trail grew narrower, twisting along the slope. Nothing dangerous yet, but higher. Thinner air. Longer incline. The chatter around them continued, lively and bright, but it began to feel slightly muffled to Midoriya, like he was listening through water. By the time they reached the second marker, his breaths had turned shallow again. Each inhale felt incomplete, like his lungs reached for something that wasn't quite there. He tried to hide it by matching his breathing to his steps. Bkdkanimelover wasn't fooled. "We're slowing down," he announced. "But the summit's not far now." Kirishima protested. Bkdkanimelover didn't even look at him. "I don't care." Midoriya forced himself to meet Bkdkanimelover's eyes. "I can still do this." Bkdkanimelover studied his face, too pale. The faint sheen of sweat at his temples despite the cold. The way his shoulders lifted just a little too much with each breath. 5 more minutes, Bkdkanimelover said at last. "Then we see what we should do with you." Midoriya nodded. "Okay." They moved again. The trail angled sharply upward now, no longer forgiving. The dirt thinned into rock. Each step demanded intention. The trees began to spread apart, exposing more sky, more wind, and less shelter. The trail pinched suddenly into stone. One moment they were still on dirt and roots. The next, the path narrowed into a thin, slanted ledge carved directly into the mountainside. To one side, solid rock. To the other, a sheer drop swallowed by fog and pine far below. A thick rope railing had been bolted into the cliff, rough with age. Kirishima slowed automatically. Okay, yeah, this just got real. Why do mountains always do this? Kaminari muttered weakly. Mina grabbed Uraraka's sleeve. Nope. Don't like that. Don't like that at all. Bakugu's hand went straight to the rope. Then, without looking, his other hand locked around Midoriya's wrist. Do not let go, he said. Midoriya swallowed hard. I won't. They moved single file now. Grip. Grip. The wind hit harder here, whipping cold against their faces. The air felt thinner, sharper. With every step, Midoriya's chest grew tighter, like the mountain itself was pressing inward. Halfway across the ledge, his breath caught. His next inhale came out broken, a sharp, useless gasp. Bakugu felt the hitch immediately through their joined hands. Nerd. Midoriya tried to answer. Another breath hitched. Then another. His grip on the rope slipped. His foot staggered sideways. Bakugu yanked him back with brute force just as Midoriya's knees buckled completely. Nerd. Midoriya folded forward, body crashing into Bakugu's chest as if all strength had been shut off at once. His breathing exploded into rapid, shallow gasps, too fast, too weak, completely out of control. I can't, nothing followed. Panic tore through his eyes. Kirishima shouted from behind, What's happening? He's not breathing right. Uraraka cried. Bakugu dropped to one knee on the narrow ledge, one arm locked around Midoriya's back, the other gripping the rope so hard his knuckles went white. The drop loomed just inches from Midoriya's dangling foot. Bakugu pulled his forehead close to Midoriya's. Look at me, he ordered, voice shaking. Don't you dare black out. Breathe with me. Midoriya tried. Air wouldn't come. His chest stuttered violently, each breath scraping uselessly through his throat. His hands trembled against Bakugu's jacket like he was drowning on dry land. Todoroki moved fast and precisely despite the panic. He's hyperventilating on top of oxygen restriction. Altitude is pushing him over the edge. So what do we do? Kaminari shouted. We get him off the ledge, Todoroki said immediately. Shiro was already bracing himself on the rock wall. There's a wider outcrop about 8 feet ahead. I'll move first, Kirishima said, planting himself solidly. Boss, pass him to me when I say. Bakugu didn't respond. He was too busy watching Midoriya's eyes start to glaze. I'm sorry, Midoriya whispered weakly. That tore straight through him. Don't you apologize, Bakugu hissed. Stay with me. Now. Kirishima ordered. Bakugu shifted his weight, inch by inch, dragging Midoriya sideways along the rock while Shiro and Kirishima shielded them from the drop. The ledge felt impossibly small. One wrong slip and they reached the outcropping. The second Midoriya was on a flat stone, his body went limp. Bakugu dropped with him, knees slamming to the rock as he caught all of his weight. Midoriya essayed in a broken, tearing breath, barely enough to stay conscious. His eyes fluttered, unfocused. I can't see right. Bakugu's chest felt like it was being crushed. Uraraka knelt beside them in tears. Midoriya, please look at me. Todoroki checked his pulse, face tightening. It's irregular. Shallow perfusion. He's running out of usable oxygen. Kaminari was already shaking as he fumbled for his phone. I'm calling emergency services, right now. Below them, the mountain wind howled through the cliffside. And for the first time since becoming their boss, since becoming dangerous, since becoming untouchable, Bakugu felt true, helpless fear rip through his entire body. He pulled Midoriya closer. You don't get to leave, he whispered fiercely. Not here. Not after everything you said to me. Finally, the distant sound of a helicopter grew from a whisper to a roar. Rescue ropes descended from the open hatch, and trained personnel moved with precise efficiency. Hold him steady, one of the rescuers instructed. Bakuga's jaw was set tight as he passed Midoriya into the rescuer's arms, staying close the entire way. Midoriya let out a small, almost imperceptible whimper, still unconscious, and Bakugu's chest tightened painfully. Once secured, the helicopter lifted off. The team followed in tense silence, the mountain receding below them. Midoriya remained in Bakugo's arms as the rescuers monitored his vitals. By the time they reached the hospital, Bakugo had barely let go. He didn't notice the cold from the night air or the shakiness in his own limbs. Doctors took over immediately, rushing Midoriya into an examination room. Monitors beeped steadily as the staff checked oxygen levels, heart rate, and blood pressure. Bakugo paced, jaw clenched, arms crossed, but his eyes never left the glassy form of Midoriya. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, a doctor stepped forward. He's stable for now, but he has exercise-induced pulmonary compromise, worsened by altitude. He has a pre-existing condition affecting his oxygen intake that wasn't diagnosed previously. Climbing the mountain triggered it severely. He needs rest, oxygen therapy, and careful monitoring. Bakugo's shoulders slumped just slightly, relief mingled with fury at himself, at the mountain, at the world. "Can I see him?" he asked tightly. The doctor nodded, stepping aside. Bakugo walked to Midoriya's bedside. He was lying pale, a thin oxygen mask over his face, chest rising and falling slowly but steadily. Tubes traced along his arms, monitors beeping a steady rhythm. Bakugo lowered himself into the chair beside him, resting his hand lightly over Midoriya's. "You idiot," he muttered, voice rough and soft all at once. "Don't scare me like that again." Though Midoriya remained unconscious, his fingers twitched slightly at the touch, as if answering. Bakugo leaned back, watching him, his mind a storm of worry, guilt, and fierce protection. Around them, the rest of the group hovered, silent, tense but giving him space, understanding instinctively that Bakugo was the anchor now. And in the quiet, Bakugo realized that no wall he'd ever built could keep him from caring this deeply, not for anyone else, and especially not for Midoriya. The night stretched on, and Bakugo stayed, vigilant, a single unyielding presence beside the boy who had risked everything for a dream, and for a moment, the world outside didn't exist, only the soft, steady rise and fall of Midoriya's fragile breaths. Midoriya woke to the soft, sterile hum of machines. The morning light that crept through the half-drawn curtains wasn't golden this time, it was pale, filtered through city haze, too clean to feel warm. The faint scent of antiseptic lingered in the air, familiar but unwelcome. He blinked, slowly orienting himself to the white ceiling, the 4-line taped to his arm, the oxygen cannula resting lightly beneath his nose. He exhaled carefully. His lungs didn't burn, but they felt fragile. Like a door he had to open gently. Bakugo was sitting in the lone chair beside the bed, arms crossed, legs stretched out in front of him, unmistakably asleep, even though he looked like he'd fought the concept with his entire willpower. His head dipped forward now and then, catching himself before falling fully. His jacket was draped over the back of the chair, rare sleeves rolled neatly instead of tossed aside. He had stayed. All night. Midoriya swallowed. "Katsuki?" Bakugo jerked awake instantly, eyes snapping open. His gaze landed on Midoriya. "You're awake." Lower. Relief softened the edges of his voice. Midoriya offered a small smile. "You stayed here?" Bakugo scoffed, rubbing at his tired eyes hard enough to hide how red they were. "Someone had to keep an eye on you. You sleep like a corpse." Midoriya huffed a tiny laugh. "You could have gone home." "What? And leave you alone in this hellhole?" "Not a chance." He stood, moving closer, pretending to check the monitor, but Midoriya could see every fraction of his attention on him. "How's your breathing?" he muttered. "A little tight," Midoriya admitted. "But nothing like yesterday." Bakugo nodded once, slow. The tension in his shoulders eased by a fraction. "Good." For a moment, silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just full. Like both of them were standing at the edge of something unspoken. Bakugo's eyes flicked to his oxygen line, then back to Midoriya's face. "You scared the shit out of me yesterday." Midoriya froze. He opened his mouth, not sure what he was going to say, but feeling the weight of the moment settle into his chest. "Katsuki, about yesterday?" A soft knock interrupted them. A nurse entered, pushing a small cart. "Midoriya-san, good morning." I need to check your vitals. Bkdk straightened immediately, walls snapping back in place. Midoriya's chants slipped through his fingers like water. The nurse checked his pulse, his oxygen levels, and asked him a few questions. Bkdk hovered behind her like a storm barely held together, glaring at every reading as if threatening it to behave. When she left, the moment was gone, replaced by the awkwardness of something almost said but not fully. Midoriya sank into his pillow. Bkdk stood by the foot of the bed, staring at him. You were gonna say something, Bkdk muttered, almost accusingly, almost quietly. Midoriya hesitated. Midoriya shifted slightly on the hospital bed, the thin blanket tangling around his arms. His chest felt tight, still but calmer with Bkdk beside him. He took a shaky breath. Katsuki, about yesterday. He started, voice low, hesitant. Bkdk's sharp eyes flicked to him, attentive but careful. Yeah. I thought I could handle it, Midoriya admitted, voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could push through without bothering anyone. Especially you. I thought if I just tried harder, it'd be enough. His hands fisted the blanket. But I was wrong. I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry. For a moment, Bkdk didn't say anything. His jaw tightened, but there was no scowl. Only the quiet weight of him, of someone listening. You dumbs, he finally muttered, voice low, rough around the edges but softer than usual. You think you can do everything alone? You don't. You don't have to. Midoriya's lips curved in a small, grateful smile. I just didn't want to worry you. I thought I could manage it. Bkdk leaned closer, just enough to close the gap without crowding him. Well, guess what? You did worry me. A lot. And I'm not letting you do that again. You hear me? Midoriya blinked, the words heavy on his tongue. Katsuki, why? Why would you worry about someone like me? I'm just me. A stranger. Someone who suddenly appeared in your life. Why would you care so much? Bkdk froze, his expression caught somewhere between irritation and something softer, something that almost didn't fit the hard edges he usually carried. His eyes flicked away briefly, jaw tightening, and then back to Midoriya with a vulnerability he rarely let anyone see. You don't get it, he muttered, voice low, rough around the edges, but quieter, softer than Midoriya had ever heard. You're not just someone. Not to me. You matter. And if something happened to you, His hands curled into fists at his sides, uncertain, almost embarrassed. I'd lose it. I don't care about others. But you're different. Midoriya's breath hitched slightly, his heart skipping a beat at the unexpected weight in Bkdk's words. Different how? He whispered, leaning just a little forward. Bkdk's glare softened, but his voice was steady, almost tender in the way he rarely allowed himself to speak. I don't know how to explain it. See things. You see me. Not the Mafia boss, not the angry sheet everyone else sees. You see me. I don't want to lose that. Not now, not ever. Midoriya's chest tightened in a mixture of awe and warmth, eyes shining faintly. I didn't know anyone could feel that way about me. Bkdk's lips twitched, a faint, almost imperceptible smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Yeah, well, lucky for you, I'm not anyone. There was a pause, silent, fragile, filled with the hum of machines and the soft, filtered light of the hospital room. For the first time, the space between them didn't feel like distance or caution, but something more. Something that quietly, impossibly, felt like belonging. Midoriya drifted somewhere between sleep and waking. The hum of machines blurred into something distant, like the city breathing through walls. His chest rose carefully with each breath, lungs still fragile, but steady. Bkdk didn't move from the chair. His phone buzzed again. This time, Bkdk didn't answer immediately. He checked Midoriya first. Still asleep. Brows faintly furrowed, like his body didn't quite trust rest yet. Bkdk stood and stepped just outside the room, pulling the door almost shut behind him. What? He hissed quietly. Kaminari's voice crackled through the line, unusually tight. Boss. We've got a problem. Bkdk's jaw clenched. Spit it out. It's Mr. Arakawa, Kaminari said. Says he won't discuss details over the phone. He wants a face-to-face. Tonight. What does he want? Bakugo asked. He says people under his protection have gone missing. Kaminari replied. Bakugo's eyes narrowed. And he thinks I'm his solution. Yeah. He specifically asked for you. Fine, Bakugo said after a moment. Set it up. Tonight? Kaminari asked. Bakugo exhaled. He won't sleep until he sees me. Just prepare for a short meeting. You want backup? Kaminari continued. There might be eyes on him. Bakugo thought it over. Yeah. Kirishima and Todoroki come with me. Understood. And while I'm out, Bakugo continued, voice lowering slightly, I don't want anything changing at the hospital. Kaminari didn't interrupt. Keep the same guys on rotation, Bakugo said. People Midoriya's already seen. No new faces suddenly popping in and out. If he notices a shift, he'll get anxious. Got it, Kaminari replied. No uniforms, Bakugo added. No suits standing in the hallway like statues either. Let them blend in. I don't want him feeling like he's under guard. I'll handle rotation with Mina and Uraraka. I'll leave Uraraka to stay with him inside. Kaminari said. Good, Bakugo said. And Ciro's already outside, Kaminari added. Parked 2 blocks down. He'll take you straight to Arakawa once you're ready. A brief pause settled between them. If anything feels off, Bakugo said, voice dropping, if anything feels off, even if you can't explain why, just call me. I don't care what I'm in the middle of. Got it, Kaminari replied, quieter now. Bakugo ended the call. Kirishima and Todoroki were already ready by the door, jackets straight, expressions calm but alert. No words passed between them, that wasn't necessary. Outside, the sleek black car waited, engine humming low. Ciro leaned against it, arms crossed, face unreadable. Driver's instinct made him the perfect standby. Bakugo opened the rear door, dropping in with the ease of someone who owned every move in the room. Kirishima slid in beside him, shoulders straight, alert. Todoroki took a seat right beside the driver, silent, hands folded, eyes scanning every movement outside the car. Ciro slid into the driver's seat. The city lights reflected in the tinted windows, painting streaks across their faces. The car rolled forward without a sound. Kirishima leaned back slightly, glancing at Bakugo. You really don't want anyone else coming with us? Bakugo's jaw tightened. No. 3 is enough. The streets rolled by, wet asphalt reflecting neon lights, slick and clean. Ciro drove like he was threading a needle, smooth and precise. Every turn is measured. Every red light was anticipated. Bakugo's hands rested on his knees, eyes forward, mind ticking through contingencies. Kirishima shifted slightly, muscles taut beneath his jacket. Todoroki's gaze swept the streets, calculating escape routes and surveillance points, quiet as a shadow. The car rolled to a stop 2 blocks from Arakawa's private lounge. The streets were quiet, slick from earlier rain, and the glow of the city reflected off polished asphalt. Ciro cut the engine without a sound. Bakugo didn't move immediately. He let the silence stretch, listening, the distant hum of traffic, the faint clatter of a late-night Delroy truck, the occasional drip of water from an awning. Kirishima sat rigid beside him, shoulders squared, while Todoroki's eyes scanned the surroundings, cold and calm. Finally, Bakugo opened the door. Kirishima moved first, following him to the side of the building. Todoroki shadowed him like a second reflection. Ciro stayed behind the wheel, a quiet anchor, ready to drive them out at a moment's notice. The lounge's entrance was unmarked, a polished steel door that would have been easy to miss if not for the single black-suited guard standing silently. He barely looked at them as Bakugo's team approached. Instead, the guard pressed a small button and the door slid open with a smooth hiss. Inside, the room was quiet, lined with soft amber lights and minimalist furniture. Arakawa stood from behind a polished desk, bowing slightly but not breaking eye contact. Bakugo-san, he said carefully, his voice steady but tight. Thank you for coming. Bakugo gave a curt nod, scanning the room. Let's keep this short. You have my attention. Arakawa gestured toward a pair of chairs. Please. Sit. Bkdk and his crew took their positions. Kirishima sat on the left, a silent pillar of presence. Todoroki remained standing slightly behind, eyes sharp, scanning the room's entrances and shadows. Bkdk's own posture stayed casual, but every line of him screamed control. I'll get to the point, Arakawa said. Several of my security personnel have disappeared. They were on assigned routes. Internal movements. Nothing public. And yet, they vanished, Arakawa said, swallowing. I don't have the manpower or discretion to investigate this without drawing attention. That's why I came to you. Bkdk leaned back slightly, studying Arakawa like a predator weighing a potential prey. You want protection. Arakawa's nod was almost imperceptible. Yes. And I need to know if this threat is still active, and I need my people safe while we figure it out. Bkdk's eyes flicked to Kirishima and Todoroki. Both acknowledged the unspoken question. Yes, they understood. I'll assign a team. Bkdk said. Arakawa's shoulders sagged slightly in relief. Thank you. Bkdk's gaze returned to him, sharper now. And the ghost hand? I don't chase shadows. My people will observe, report, and respond if necessary. I don't want mistakes. Okay, Arakawa whispered. A quiet settled over the room. The lights glimmered softly, reflecting off polished surfaces. Kirishima and Todoroki remained statuesque, alert to every sound, every micro-movement. Bkdk's hands rested casually. Bkdk finally spoke, his voice cutting through the silence. That's the deal. You stay quiet. I handle the rest. Any slip-ups, and you'll wish you hadn't. Arakawa swallowed, nodding once. Understood. Thank you, Bkdk-san. Bkdk didn't answer. He stood, signaling to Kirishima and Todoroki. They moved with him, shadowing him every step as they left the lounge. Outside, Siro's car waited, engine humming softly. The city stretched before them, dark and wet, full of potential threats, whispers, and unknowns. Bkdk slid into the back seat, Kirishima beside him, Todoroki opposite, and Siro pulled smoothly back onto the street. No one spoke. They didn't need to. In this city, silence often said more than words ever could. The hospital room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the monitors. Midoriya lay propped on the bed, blanket tucked around him, pale but stable. Uraraka hovered nearby, fidgeting slightly, while Mina and Kaminari kept watch near the door. Nothing had felt off all morning until now. The door opened slowly. A man in a white coat stepped in, clipboard in hand, smiling professionally. Good evening, he said smoothly. I'm Dr. Ishida. I've come to administer a medication for Midoriya-san. It's important for his recovery. Uraraka straightened immediately. Oh, that's good, he needs it. The doctor nodded, leaning slightly closer. Yes, very important. It's routine, but I need to check him thoroughly. I'd prefer privacy for the procedure. Could you step out for a few minutes, please? Uraraka hesitated, eyes flicking to Mina and Kaminari. Sure, if it's necessary. Mina and Kaminari exchanged uneasy glances, hands tightening subtly at their sides. We'll wait right outside, Mina said cautiously. Let's do it quickly, Kaminari said finally. He needs rest. The doctor's smile never wavered. Thank you. It won't take long. Uraraka stepped out, leaving the door ajar. Kaminari hovered by the side of the bed, eyes narrowed. Midoriya blinked up at the man nervously. Is this really necessary? The doctor's tone was calm, practiced. Just, it's routine. You need this for your recovery. Trust me. Midoriya's heart raced as the man prepared the injection. The door remained ajar, but the hall outside was empty. His friends were gone, giving him space, trusting the doctor's authority. The doctor's smile never wavered. With a quick, practiced motion, he administered the injection. All done, he said smoothly. Almost immediately, Midoriya felt a strange heaviness in his limbs. His eyelids drooped uncontrollably, chest rising and falling in slow, steady breaths. He murmured, voice barely audible, before drifting into sleep. His body was limp, compliant, fully under the influence of the drag. The doctor glanced at the monitors, noting the effect of the injection. Once Midoriya's eyelids drooped and his breathing evened out, he carefully wheeled the bed to the door. Stepping out into the hallway, he squared his shoulders and addressed Kaminari, Mina, and Uraraka directly. His voice was calm but carried an edge of urgency. "Midoriya-san is stable for now," he said, gesturing toward the room. "However, the sedative I administered requires immediate follow-up. He needs to be moved to the operating suite for a precautionary procedure. It's minor, but urgent, just to ensure the medication doesn't depress his breathing or interact poorly with his current treatment. I need him under constant monitoring in a controlled environment." Mina and Kaminari exchanged wary glances, their hands tightening slightly. "I know it sounds sudden, but if we delay, there's a risk of complications. I'll handle everything. It's a standard, routine procedure for patients in his condition. He'll be fully monitored and it won't take long." Uraraka bit her lip nervously. Kaminari nodded reluctantly. "Please take good care of him." The doctor inclined his head politely. "Of course, I'll take excellent care of him." With that, he wheeled the bed toward the operating suite, Midoriya unconscious and compliant under the sedative. Once inside, a small side door allowed him to disappear completely, a hidden exit no one outside the room would notice. Kaminari's phone buzzed in his hand, urgent. He quickly tapped the line. "Boss, we've got a situation." Bakuga's voice came sharp and immediate. "Spit it out, Diamante." "Midoriya, the doctor just said he needs emergency surgery. He's already taken him to the operating suite," Kaminari said, trying to keep his tone calm despite the unease gnawing at him. Bakuga's brow furrowed, jaw tightening. "Emergency surgery? Who's the doctor? Name, appearance, I need every detail." Kaminari related, "His name is Dr. Ishida. And the doctor said it was precautionary due to the sedative." Bakuga's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You idiot, that's not the doctor I assigned for Midoriya. I already paid a personal doctor, someone I trust completely. That guy? Suspicious as hell." Bakuga's jaw clenched. "Listen carefully. I know how hospitals work. Any surgery requires guardian consent forms, signed and verified before the patient can be moved into an operating room. Even in emergencies, there are protocols. Someone should have contacted me or a legal guardian." Bakuga growled, voice low but intense. "No one contacted me. No consent forms signed, nothing official. That alone is enough to raise red flags. They don't let patients move to surgery without clearance, especially someone fragile like Midoriya. Something's wrong." Kaminari's heart raced. "So he's not safe?" Bakuga's glare hardened. "Not until we know who that guy really is and where he took Midoriya. I don't care what excuse he gave, we move fast, or we lose him. Understand?" "Yes, boss," Kaminari said, already coordinating in his head. The car cut through the city streets, tires hissing over wet asphalt. Shiro's hands gripped the wheel tightly, eyes scanning the road ahead, while Kirishima leaned forward, his jaw set, and Todoroki sat silently beside Bakuga, cold and alert. Bakuga's eyes were fixed on the rearview mirror, narrowing. "Listen up," he said, voice sharp and controlled. "Kaminari just called. Midoriya's been taken to some emergency surgery, but no one at the hospital contacted me. No consent forms, and the doctor's not the one I assigned. That means he's being kidnapped." Shiro's grip tightened. "You want me to rush there, boss?" "Exactly," Bakuga said, tone clipped. "Full speed. We're not waiting." Todoroki's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "Boss, someone's following us," he said quietly, voice calm but alert. The following car inched even closer, suddenly ramming the back of their car with a deafening crunch. Tires squealed. Metal screamed as the sedan slammed into their rear bumper again, this time with intent. Shiro cursed under his breath, hands white-knuckled on the wheel as the car fishtailed before he forced it back into line. "Sheet!" Bakuga didn't flinch. "Keep driving," he snapped. "They want us stopped. Don't give it to them." The engine roared as Shiro accelerated, city lights blurring into streaks of neon. In the side mirror, the pursuing car closed the distance, headlights glaring like predatory eyes. A gunshot cracked through the night. The rear windshield shattered, glass exploding inward. Kirishima swore as shards rained over the seats. Gun! Kirishima barked. Bkdk was already moving. He leaned forward, pulling a handgun from beneath his coat with smooth, practiced precision. No panic. No wasted motion. Zero, zigzag. Don't let them line up clean shots. Another shot rang out, punching into the trunk with a dull, metallic thud. Todoroki ducked low, peering back through the broken glass. 2 shooters. One in the back seat. He rolled the window down just enough, the cold night air rushing in. The car swerved sharply left as Zero obeyed his orders, tires screeching. Bkdk leaned out and fired. 3 sharp cracks split the air. Bkdk's hand was steady, aim precise. A bullet tore into the rear tire of the pursuing car. The vehicle wobbled violently, fishtailing as the driver struggled to regain control. Sparks flew as metal scraped the asphalt. Nice shot! Kirishima shouted, gripping the seat. As if on cue, another vehicle appeared from a side street, cutting in fast, trying to box them in. Gunfire erupted from both sides now. Bullets slammed into doors, shattered side mirrors, tore through street signs. Persistent BSs, Kirishima muttered, gripping the seat. Bkdk reloaded smoothly, eyes burning. They're desperate. That means Midoriya's already in deep trouble. He leaned out again, ignoring the danger, firing with brutal precision. 1 shot punched through the driver's side window of the second car. It swerved wildly, clipping the curb before spinning toward the edge of the street. The city streets blurred beneath the tires, rain slicking asphalt reflecting neon lights. The second pursuing car struggled to regain control, swerving dangerously close, but Zero kept the wheel steady under Bkdk's precise commands. Bkdk's eyes narrowed as he checked the distance on the GPS. We're not going to make it there fast enough if this keeps up, he muttered, voice low but sharp. His mind raced, calculating every obstacle, traffic, pedestrians, potential ambush points. Call the rest. The guys I left at the mansion. I don't care if they're asleep or eating, get a backup team to the hospital, now. Tell them everything. Midoriya's in serious danger. We need to secure the place before we get there. Todoroki's hand moved quickly, tapping into his secure comms. Understood. I'll get them moving. Rain streaked past, neon lights smearing into lines of fire. The hospital loomed in the distance, but the road was still long, and the mystery of what awaited inside made Bkdk's grip tighten. They had Midoriya in danger. He didn't yet know who was behind it, but whoever it was, they were playing a dangerous game. Kaminari's shoes pounded against the hospital floor as he practically skidded into the small staff area where Mina and Uraraka were waiting. His face was pale, eyes wide with urgency. Listen, something is wrong, he blurted out, grabbing both their shoulders to get their attention. Uraraka and Mina turned, immediately sensing the tension. What's wrong? Uraraka asked. Kaminari glanced over his shoulder, then lowered his voice. It's about the doctor. The one who's checking Midoriya. He's not the doctor boss personally assigned. Boss thinks it's suspicious. Midoriya is probably in danger. Uraraka's eyes widened, her stomach twisting. We should move now. Mina nodded sharply, voice firm. We can't risk Midoriya being moved or worse. The 3 of them moved quickly but quietly down the corridor toward the operation wing, hearts pounding, muscles tense. They skidded into the operation wing, slamming open the first set of doors. Where is he? Midoriya? Mina yelled, sweeping her gaze over the room. Empty. Uraraka froze, stomach dropping. He should be here. Kaminari's breath came fast as he checked the monitors. The bed's gone. Midoriya isn't here. Uraraka's eyes darted toward every possible exit, her pulse racing. We have to call Bkdk. He needs to know now. Kaminari fumbled with his communicator, voice urgent. Boss, Midoriya's gone. The operation room is empty. Bkdk's voice came through instantly, cold and cutting. The backup team is rerouting to the hospital. Every exit, every hall, secure it. I want him back, no mistakes. Yes, boss. Kaminari shouted, heart racing. Mina and Uraraka exchanged a glance, fear flashing but determination blazing in their eyes. Mina muttered, "We screwed up?" Uraraka's jaw tightened. "We'll fix this. We have to." But as they stared down the empty operation suite, adrenaline surging, they knew one thing for certain: Midoriya was gone, and every second counted. The room smelled of dust and cold concrete. Shadows pooled in the corners, distorted by the dim light of a single, flickering bulb overhead. Midoriya's eyes fluttered open, adjusting slowly to the darkness. He was bound to a sturdy chair, his arms pinned with leather straps that bit into his skin. Panic surged. Am I? His voice trembled, cracking in the quiet. A slow, deliberate clap echoed from the shadows. Midoriya's head jerked toward the sound. A man emerged, stepping into the pale light. Dressed in dark tactical gear, mask partially obscuring his face, his movements were unnervingly calm. "You're awake," the man said, his voice smooth, controlled. Midoriya's heart raced. Who are you? What do you want?" The figure straightened, hands resting casually at his sides. "Names are complicated," he said, though a glint in his eyes betrayed a twisted satisfaction. "But you can call me Kurigane." The ghost hand. The name hit Midoriya like ice water. He swallowed hard, realizing this was no random criminal. No street thug. This was someone dangerous, someone who had been planning this carefully. Kurigane circled the chair slowly, like a predator savoring the tension. "I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. You see," he said, "I've studied him for a while. It's kind of frustrating that guy does not have any weak spots, but now I've found his weakness." Midoriya's stomach twisted. What do you want with me?" Kurigane circled the chair slowly, like a predator savoring the tension. His voice dipped into sharp annoyance. "Honestly, Bakugo. Always sticking his nose in my business. Always disrupting operations." He tapped a finger on the chair arm near Midoriya. "And you are going to be the perfect leverage. The one thing he can't ignore. The one thing he'll lose control over." Midoriya's hands struggled against the straps, but it was futile. His chest tightened, panic clawing at his throat. "Don't bother wasting your strength," Kurigane said, stepping back. "Resistance is entertaining, but it won't save you. Not this time. Not against me. Soon," he whispered, "he'll realize what he's lost." And then, a smile curved beneath his mask, eyes cold and sharp. "He'll come for you. And that's when the real game begins." Kurigane stepped back into the shadows, muttering under his breath. "That Bakugo, always meddling. I should have removed him years ago." The flicker of the light cast jagged shadows across his face, his patience thinning like a taut wire ready to snap. The ghost hand had made his move. And now, the real hunt had begun. The city lights streaked across the wet streets as Siro pushed the car to its limits. Bakuga's eyes flicked between the rearview mirror and the GPS, calculating every turn, every possible shortcut. "Todoroki! How fast can the backup team reach the hospital?" he barked over the comms. Todoroki's fingers danced over his secure line, eyes scanning the mirrors. 15 minutes at best. Traffic, diversions, they'll have to cut corners. Bakuga's jaw tightened. 15 minutes is a lifetime when Midoriya's in someone else's hands. He leaned forward, voice clipped and urgent. "Siro," he said, sharp. "Change of plan. We're not heading straight into the hospital anymore. Too many unknowns. Pull over somewhere quiet, garage, alley, whatever. We settle this before we go in. Figure out exactly who we're dealing with and how to handle it." Siro's hands tightened on the wheel, eyes flicking to Baku. "Understood. I know a hidden alley 2 blocks from here. Minimal traffic, lots of cover." "Good," Bakugo replied, voice low and tense. Siro cut hard off the main road. The car slipped into a narrow alley, concrete walls closing in on both sides. Trash bags and rusted fire escapes blurred past before Siro slammed the brakes. The engine died. Silence dropped like a curtain, broken only by rain tapping against metal and the distant hum of the city. Bakugo didn't waste a second. "Everyone out. Now." Kirishima was first, vaulting out of the car with the grace of someone who had done this countless times. Todoroki followed, calm and precise, eyes sweeping the alley for any sign of movement. Bkdk leapt last, boots hitting wet concrete with a soft splash. Zero stayed behind the wheel for now, ready to cover their retreat or ram if needed. From the alley's entrance, the pursuing car skidded to a halt, doors swinging open. Its occupants spilled out, guns drawn, but their movements were sloppy, rushed. They hadn't expected Bkdk to confront them head-on. Bkdk's eyes flicked between them. "You idiots don't know who you're dealing with." The attackers fired first, bullets ripping through the narrow space. Bkdk dropped low, rolling behind a dumpster, returning fire with brutal accuracy. Kirishima used his bulk to block incoming shots, pushing one attacker against the wall, forcing him to drop his weapon. Todoroki stayed back, picking precise shots at tires and weapons, making sure no one could flank them. By now, the alley was chaos, smoke rising from dented car panels, and groans of injured men. Several attackers were down, some unconscious, some bleeding, some clearly out of the fight. Only one remained standing, drenched, pistol shaking in his hands. His companions were gone, leaving him exposed. His eyes flicked from Bkdk to Kirishima and Todoroki, calculating. He knew he was cornered. Bkdk advanced slowly, boots splashing through puddles, eyes cold, unwavering. "Talk. Who sent you?" His voice cut through the rain like a knife, every syllable sharp, precise. Silence. Bkdk's grip tightened, his knuckles white. "I'm not asking again." The man's gaze snapped downward, not in fear of Bkdk, but in resolve. There was a brief, almost imperceptible quiver in his jaw, then his hand moved swiftly, impossibly fast. Before Bkdk could react, the man yanked the pistol back, aiming it at his own temple. "I won't betray him," the man muttered, a calmness in his voice that chilled Bkdk to the bone. The gun went off. Bkdk's fist clenched, his jaw locked, and his body tensed as the echo of the shot rang in the alley. Rain splashed over the lifeless body, mixing with the puddles, as if the city itself were mourning. He knelt beside the man, inspecting the scene with cold, controlled fury. "Ain't it always the loyal ones?" he muttered, voice low and rough. His eyes narrowed toward the shadows, calculating, scanning, already forming the next moves. If they're willing to die for someone, that someone's powerful. And that's who I need to find. Kirishima and Todoroki flanked him silently, their expressions grim but steady. "Boss?" Kirishima murmured, voice tight. Bkdk stood slowly, rain dripping from his hair and jacket, fists still clenched. "Let's move." He glanced at Zero, who was waiting near the car. Todoroki cast a glance at the alley, surveying the damage and fallen bodies. "We need to be careful," he said, voice calm but wary. Bkdk's gaze burned cold. "Careful? We're going in fast. We're going in hard. And whoever's behind this, he's going to regret ever touching my people." The rain continued to fall, but in the alley, silence returned, broken only by the distant hum of the city and the dripping water from the buildings above. The deadly warning had been delivered, Bkdk was coming, and no loyalty or fear would stop him. Bkdk's boots splashed through the puddles as he approached the rear of the car, eyes still scanning the alley. Rain plastered his hair to his forehead, water dripping from the edge of his jacket, but his focus was unshakable. Kirishima and Todoroki flanked him, silently covering his six. The fallen attacker lay still, a grim testament to the stakes at play. Bkdk's phone buzzed violently in his coat pocket. He ripped it out, glancing at the screen. He raised an eyebrow, irritation flashing across his features. "Who the hell?" he answered sharply. A cold, calm voice cut through the rain, carrying both amusement and warning. "Bkdk Katsuki." Bkdk's jaw tightened, fingers flexing around the phone. "Who is this?" A slow, controlled chuckle filled the line. "It is the ghost hand, the one you've been looking for. I believe you already know. The boy. Midoriya. He is the most perfect leverage against someone like you." Bkdk's teeth ground together. Rain streaked down his face, mingling with the fury in his eyes. "Leverage?" You think I give a DMN about your games? Another chuckle, slow, deliberate, and infuriatingly calm. Always so direct. I expected nothing less from the notorious Bkdkanimelover. But I'm afraid you underestimate the situation. The ones you faced in that alley, loyal to me beyond reason. They were prepared to die before speaking a word. A pity for you, perhaps. Bakuga's jaw twitched. You son of a... Enough, Kurigane interrupted smoothly. I'm not here to play nice. I've studied you, Bakuga. You are strong, clever, relentless. But even you have weaknesses. I found it. Your attachment, your anger, your need to protect. That boy is the key. And soon, you will see why meddling in my affairs was a grave mistake. Bakuga tightened his grip on the phone, the sound of his breathing heavy over the line. I swear, you touch him and you're done. A soft mocking sigh. Oh, I've no doubt. But fear, rage, desperation, those emotions? They only make you predictable. And predictable is exploitable. Don't worry, this boy is still safe for now. But not for long. I want you to locate me. Figure out where I am. Consider it the test of skill, of resourcefulness. If you fail, the boy dies. 1 hour, 60 minutes from this call. Fail, and the consequences will be irreversible. Succeed, and perhaps we can play my little game further. Perhaps I'll even allow him to live. The line went dead, leaving only the hiss of rain and the distant hum of the city. Bakuga slammed the phone shut, rainwater splashing across the concrete. His eyes burned, sharp and focused. 1 hour, he muttered through gritted teeth. He gives me 1 hour to find him. Rain-slicked streets stretched ahead as Bakuga, Kirishima, Todoroki, and Siro moved fast through the city. Bakuga's phone buzzed again. He swiped it open. Kaminari, he barked into the line. Where's everyone? On the other end, Kaminari's voice was tight, almost frantic. We're at the hospital. Uraraka, Mina, and the backup team, they are all here. Bakuga exhaled slowly through his nose, forcing his rage into focus. Good. Listen carefully. Pull hospital footage. Every hallway, every elevator, every loading bay. I want timestamps, faces, routes. Track where Midoriya was moved. Trace the doctor. Face recognition, staff records, anything. If he used a fake ID, find out where it came from. As for the backup team, have them sweep known warehouses, abandoned facilities, old transit tunnels. Anyone with medical-grade sedatives or restraint equipment just jumped to the top of the list. Midoriya's breath hitched first. The air felt heavier, thicker, like it wasn't quite reaching his lungs. He swallowed, throat dry. His chest rose, then fell, but the relief never came. The faint hum in the room deepened, almost imperceptible at first. The flickering bulb overhead dimmed, brightened, dimmed again. Midoriya frowned, confusion bleeding into fear. Is this? Then a voice, calm and controlled, echoed from a small speaker sitting on the table beside him. Midoriya tried to take a deeper breath. It burned. His lungs protested, tight and aching, like they were being squeezed from the inside. His head swam, vision blurring at the edges. It is carbon monoxide. Most don't even realize it's happening until it's too late. But you will. Slowly. Midoriya's eyes widened, panic clawing at his throat. I can't, please. A slow sigh came through the speaker. Relax. Actually, it won't matter. You're just a collateral after all. Midoriya's hands struggled against the straps, gagging on shallow, painful breaths. Bakuga Katsuki, Kurigane's voice cut coldly through the speaker. That man has ruined everything I've built. Intercepted my plans, burned my routes, killed my men. And yet, he never bleeds. Another pause, then soft, controlled. This time he will. Kurigane's voice returned through the speaker, unhurried, almost reflective. And even if I get killed, he said calmly, at least I know one thing for sure. Midoriya's chest tightened. Each breath came shorter than the last, shallow and burning. His vision blurred at the edges, dark spots blooming like ink in water. He will lose you. The words landed heavier than the gas itself. Kurogane continued, tone precise, clinical. That is why I isolated you in this room. Midoriya's head shook weakly. Stop, he whispered, though the sound barely left his throat. Oh, don't be like that, Kurogane murmured. I know about your lungs. The damage you already carry. Fragile things really. Sensitive. Vulnerable. Midoriya gasped, pain blooming sharp behind his ribs. His hands strained uselessly against the straps as he fought to draw in air that simply wasn't there. Even if he saves you, Kurogane went on, voice smooth, almost satisfied, this will leave scars. Long-term ones. The pause. Consider this my future planning. Midoriya's head drooped forward, sweat beading along his hairline. His heart pounded erratically, every beat loud in his ears. He forced himself to stay conscious, clinging to one thought, Bakugo. You're not winning, Midoriya rasped, forcing the words out through shaking breaths. A soft laugh echoed through the speaker. Winning isn't always about survival, Midoriya Izuku. Sometimes, it's about what you take away from your enemy. The speaker crackled faintly. I take away his certainty, his control, his belief that he can always save the people he cares about. Midoriya's vision tunneled. The room tilted, walls bending inward as his body struggled against the poison filling his lungs. Somewhere far away, metal creaked, doors, vents, systems adjusting, but he couldn't tell if it was real or just his mind slipping. The speaker clicked off. Silence returned, thick, suffocating. Midoriya fought to stay awake, chest burning, teeth clenched as he clung to consciousness by sheer will alone. Bakugo was coming. He had to be. The hospital's security room hummed with low electricity, walls lined with monitors displaying corridors, elevators, and loading bays in endless grids. Fluorescent lights cast a cold glow over the cramped space. Bakugo stood at the center of it, arms crossed, jaw tight. The security chief hesitated at the door. This area's restricted. Bakugo didn't even look at him. Call Dr. Fujimoto. The man froze. Sir? Bakugo finally turned, eyes sharp. My doctor. You know him. There was a beat of tense silence. Before the security chief could respond, hurried footsteps echoed down the corridor. A man in a dark coat stepped into view, rainwater still clinging to the hem, glasses slightly askew from rushing. Security Chief Hoshino. The chief straightened instantly. Dr. Fujimoto? Dr. Fujimoto nodded once, already pulling out his credentials. I was informed my patient has gone missing under hospital supervision. His gaze flicked briefly to Bakugo, recognition passing between them. I'll take responsibility for authorizing this access. The chief hesitated only a second before stepping aside. Of course, doctor. If you're overseeing it, then. The security door slid open with a mechanical hiss. Bakugo entered first. The security room was dim, walls lined with surveillance monitors displaying feeds from every wing of the hospital. Elevators. Hallways. Loading bays. A few technicians turned in surprise, immediately stiffening when they saw Dr. Fujimoto. Bakugo planted his hands on the console. Pull up operating wing C. Time stamped from an hour ago. One of the techs swallowed and obeyed. Bakugo leaned in, eyes razor-focused as the camera showed a stretcher being wheeled down a corridor, not rushed, not chaotic. That's him, Kirishima said quietly. Bakugo's jaw tightened. Zoom. The feed sharpened. The doctor's face was partially obscured by a mask, cap pulled low. Footsteps rushed in behind them. Bakugo didn't turn. He felt them before he heard them. Kaminari, Uraraka, and Mina entered the room, reins still clinging to their clothes, faces tight with urgency. Bakugo's eyes didn't leave the screen. The security room dimmed as the footage began to play, the low hum of servers filling the silence while multiple monitors flickered to life. Bakugo stood at the front, arms crossed, eyes locked onto the screens with a focus sharp enough to cut. The next camera caught the far end of the parking row. A dark sedan sat waiting, engine already running, its headlights cutting through the damp air. The doctor stopped beside it, unlocked the trunk, and lifted the lid. The final camera followed the sedan as it pulled away, tires whispering against wet concrete. It passed beneath the exit gate and merged onto the street, Rain across the lens just as the license plate came briefly into focus. Bkdk memorized it instantly. Seconds later, the car vanished into traffic, swallowed by the city as if it had never been there at all. The screen froze on the empty parking space, the timestamp still running, the silence in the room growing heavy. "Got it?" he said quietly. The room held its breath. Bkdk turned sharply, already pulling his phone from his coat. His thumb moved without hesitation, dialing a number he rarely used, and never without reason. It rang once, twice. Then, "Bkdk Katsuki," a low, gravel-smooth voice answered. "This better be worth waking half my network." Bkdk's voice was clipped, all business. "I need a plate traced. Now." There was a pause on the line. "Read it." Bkdk rattled off the number without looking away from the frozen screen. "Black sedan. Left the central medical parking bay 17 minutes ago. Driver posing as hospital staff. There is a life on stake." "Got him." Bkdk's grip tightened around the phone. "Send coordinates." "Already did." The phone vibrated in his palm. "Thanks, Shinso. I owe you one." He pocketed the phone and turned toward the team. "Let's move." Rain streaked across the windshield as the car slowed near the warehouse district. Ciro kept his eyes on the road, hands steady on the wheel. Beside him, Bkdk leaned forward slightly. "Give me the drone view." In the back seat, Todoroki lifted a small controller, his expression calm and focused. He tapped the screen, and a live video feed appeared on the dashboard display. The warehouse came into view, wide, dark, and surrounded by empty ground. "There," Todoroki said evenly. "People outside. Armed." Bkdk's eyes narrowed. "How many?" Todoroki studied the screen for a moment. "At least 12. Maybe more inside. They're spread out, covering all sides." Kirishima let out a low breath. "That's a lot." "How many do we have?" Bkdk asked. "All teams. Including backup." Todoroki didn't hesitate. His eyes flicked briefly to his display, then back up. "Our car makes 4, he said calmly. Mina's team adds 3. The backup team is 8. Total of 15. Bkdk nodded once, already running the numbers in his head. 15 against at least 12 outside, he said. Plus more inside. Ciro, drive past the warehouse once we're arrived. Full speed. Don't stop. He turned slightly to Kirishima and Todoroki. "Kirishima, you're with me up front," he said. "You walk in first. Draw their fire and force them to commit. I will take the opportunity to shoot them when there is an opening." Kirishima rolled his shoulders, adjusting the weight of the vest beneath his jacket. "I'll keep their eyes on me." He shifted slightly toward Todoroki. "You stay just behind us. Watch the sides. Anyone moves wrong, anyone tries to get clever, you put them down." Todoroki nodded once, calm as ever. "I've got it." Bkdk pressed the button on the walkie clipped to his jacket. The faint crackle filled the car before the line opened. "Kaminari," he said calmly. "The beat." Then Kaminari's voice came through, tight but steady. "I hear you." "When we step out," Bkdk continued, eyes fixed on the warehouse ahead, "when we step out, I want this place blind. Lights off. I don't care how you do it, just make sure they don't see us coming or know where to run." Kaminari swallowed, then gave a tight nod. "Yeah, I can do that." "Mina," Bkdk continued, voice even. "You stay close to him. If anyone slips past the front, you deal with it." A sharp breath on the other end. "Understood." "Uraraka." "I'm here," she said. Bkdk's voice lowered, losing none of its authority but gaining weight. "You will come with us. Your only job is Midoriya. The second you find him, you leave. You don't wait for me." There was no hesitation. "I will." Bkdk switched the channel on the walkie, thumb steady, voice carrying that same cold certainty that made people listen without question. "The rest," he said. Static crackled for a brief second before multiple quiet responses came through, confirming they were on the line. "We don't know how many are inside," Bkdk continued, eyes never leaving the dark outline of the warehouse. That means things will get messy. His voice stayed even. Controlled. If they come at us from behind, you deal with it. If they pour out from the sides, you deal with it. If more people show up than we planned for, a brief pause, heavy with meaning, you deal with it. No hesitation. No room for doubt. I don't want anyone getting close to Midoriya once we find him, Bkdk added. Anyone who tries becomes your problem. The radio crackled with firm acknowledgments. In the second car, Kaminari sat hunched over his laptop, cables running from the device into a portable signal booster taped beneath the dashboard. His screen was split into 4 windows: city power access, private generator logs, camera feeds, and a looping script he'd written himself. Same system for everything, he muttered. Lights, cameras, alarms. Amateur mistake. The cameras were the easiest. Most private warehouses didn't bother with live monitoring anymore. They relied on automated recording, cheap systems, default passwords, no active oversight. Kaminari slipped in through the back and using credentials he'd lifted earlier from a subcontractor's email server. One click. The camera feeds froze. Then the lights. The warehouse had its own generator, meant to kick in if city power dropped. Kaminari let the main power stay live and targeted the internal lighting grid instead, feeding it a short, controlled overload. He hit the final. Outside, the warehouse lights flickered once. Twice. Then died. Kaminari's voice came sharp and steady through the walkie. Lights are down. Cameras are frozen. You're clear to move. Bkdk's eyes narrowed, scanning the dark silhouette of the warehouse ahead. A faint smirk touched his lips. Good. Zero hit the accelerator. Full speed. We go in now. The car lurched forward, tires spitting rainwater, and slid into position just outside the warehouse. Bkdk's eyes were sharp, scanning every shadow, every glint of metal, every possible exit. The rain made visibility poor, but that worked to their advantage. Everyone on my mark, Bkdk muttered, voice low and steady. Front first. Keep to the plan. Kirishima's boots hit the wet ground first. He moved like a tank, low profile, taking the brunt of the likely first shots. 2 armed guards at the front spotted him immediately and raised their pistols. Kirishima didn't hesitate. He rolled into cover behind a stack of crates, arms tensed, and swung his shoulder into the first man as the shot went off. The gun misfired against the concrete wall. Bkdk sprinted just behind him, pistols drawn, checking angles as they approached. Go, 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 he barked, and his voice carried a dangerous edge. Shots cracked, ricocheting off metal beams and walls. Todoroki stayed behind the front line, crouched low, eyes moving methodically, signaling to Zero via a small earpiece. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of crates and pallets, shadows thick in the corners. Kaminari's lights and camera hack had done its job. The place was blind to any internal surveillance. Bkdk moved like a predator, fists clenched, eyes sharp, coordinating with Kirishima's cover. A guard popped up behind a crate, aiming directly at Kirishima. Bkdk fired a precise shot, the bullet hitting the man's gun hand and sending the weapon skidding across the floor. Kirishima slammed his shoulder into the same guard, knocking him out cold. Keep moving. Bkdk barked, and the team advanced, fluid, precise, practiced. No hesitation, no second-guessing. Uraraka and Mina moved along the side corridors, scanning for Midoriya's location. Each time they cleared a hallway, Mina signaled silently with a hand gesture. Midoriya was not yet in sight, but they were closing in. Bullets cracked against crates, ricocheting in every direction as Bkdk, Kirishima, and Todoroki advanced, weaving through shadows. The team moved like a single unit, precise and practiced, but something felt off. Then, the faint hum of a speaker activated somewhere overhead. A calm, deliberate voice echoed through the warehouse, cutting through the chaos. So eager, so predictable. Everyone froze, rifles and fists snapping toward the source of the voice. No figure appeared, just the shadows. Bkdk's eyes narrowed, teeth gritted. Ghost hand, where the hell are you? A slow, mocking laugh echoed through the speakers. Oh, I'm everywhere and nowhere. I prefer to watch, to orchestrate from the shadows. You see, every step you take, every choice you make? I'm already 3 moves ahead. Kirishima gritted his teeth. Enough with the games. Where's Midoriya? Bakugo's fists clenched, breathing sharp, cold fury simmering beneath his control. You think hiding behind a voice is enough to stop me? Oh, Bakugo. Even if you find me, even if you storm this warehouse and take me down, you can't save him in time. That room, the gas, it's already working. Bakugo's jaw tightened, teeth grinding. You hear me? I will save him. The speaker crackled, Kurigane's calm, chilling voice cutting through the chaos. Oh, I know you will. That's why I chose him. That's why I knew he would be your weakness. You can storm this warehouse, fight every guard, destroy every trap, and still, he will be breathing his last before you reach him. Kirishima's eyes narrowed, shoulders tensing. Boss, we have to move. Now. Bakugo's gaze didn't waver from the shadows, every muscle coiled. I'm not losing him. Not this time. Not to him. Kirishima's shoulder bumped against him, a grounding presence amid the storm. Boss, he said, voice firm but steady, you go get Midoriya. We've got this. Todoroki interrupted, stepping beside Kirishima, his tone sharp and certain. You're the one he's counting on. The one this guy wants to face. We can hold these guys off. Uraraka and Mina will follow you to him. Bakugo's jaw tightened. His instincts screamed to push forward, to take the fight head-on. But looking at Kirishima and Todoroki, he saw the same determination he had drilled into them countless times: precision, strength, trust. You're our leader, Kirishima continued, voice low but unwavering. You trained us, made us ready for this. Let us fight while you go save him. Todoroki added, his eyes scanning the room with sharp calculation, we know what's at stake. We can handle it. Bring him back. Bakugo exhaled, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. Uraraka, Mina, with me, he said, voice low and dangerous. The girls nodded immediately, understanding the gravity of the moment. All right, Bakugo muttered, fists ready, eyes burning with focus. Let's finish this. He took the lead, charging into the shadows, the rain outside mixing with the sparks of gunfire behind them. Kirishima and Todoroki moved in perfect sync, covering every angle, every threat, their trust in their boss unshakable. Bakugo sprinted through the dim corridors of the warehouse, Uraraka and Mina close behind. Rainwater from the open doors outside had pooled along the floors, making each step slick, but he didn't slow. Every muscle burned, every breath sharp, every heartbeat echoing the fear and fury clawing at his chest. Gunfire and shouts faded behind them. Kirishima and Todoroki were doing exactly what they promised, holding the warehouse's remaining guards at bay. Bakugo didn't allow himself a glance backward. He couldn't risk losing focus. His mind was singular, reach Midoriya. Then he saw him. Midoriya, tied to a chair in the center of a wide, shadowed room. The faint hum of the gas still lingered in the air, but the young man's green eyes lit with recognition the moment they met Bakugo's. Relief was fleeting. There was someone else in the room. Kurigane. You're persistent, Kurigane said, voice smooth, almost amused. I expected more caution from you. Bakugo's fists clenched, jaw tight. Step away from him. Now. Kurigane tilted his head, a faint smirk visible beneath his mask. But I've been looking forward to this. Then an instant, Kurigane lunged. Not with superhuman speed, just calculated, practiced movement, a trained fighter using shadows, leverage, and the environment. Bakugo barely had time to react, sidestepping as a heavy metal pipe swung where he had just been. Sparks flew as it clanged against the concrete. Bakugo's own movements were precise, instinctive, fueled by adrenaline and rage. He threw a punch, aiming for Kurigane's jaw, but the man twisted away, ducking under the strike, landing a sharp elbow against Bakugo's ribs. The impact knocked the wind out of him, but he didn't falter. You're fast, Kurigane remarked, circling him slowly. But are you clever enough? Bakugo growled, wiping blood from the corner of his lip. I don't care how smart you are. I'm getting him out. That's all that matters. Bakugo shoved Kurogane back one final time, pressing him against a wall of stacked crates. Dust and splinters flew through the air, and Kurogane's breath came slightly faster now, his calm composure starting to crack under Bakugo's relentless pressure. Uraraka! Mina! Bakugo barked, voice sharp and urgent, cutting through the lingering tension in the warehouse. Get him out! Take Midoriya and move to hospital, now. Uraraka didn't hesitate. She and Mina sprinted toward Midoriya, carefully lifting him from the chair, still strapped and weak from the gas. His green eyes met Bakugo's, and for the first time, there was a flicker of relief in them. Don't worry, Midoriya. We've got you, Uraraka said, her hands steady despite the chaos around them. Bakugo turned back toward Kurogane, fists ready, stance low and sharp. You're not going anywhere. Not today. Kurogane's lips curled into a thin smile, tension visible in the set of his shoulders. You're predictable, Bakugo. Just like how I plan. Doesn't matter, Bakugo spat, stepping forward, eyes blazing. I don't care about your plans. I only care about him. With that, Uraraka and Mina, carrying Midoriya carefully between them, backed toward the exit. Bakugo covered them, every movement precise, ready to intercept any attack from Kurogane or remaining guards. Go! 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 Bakugo shouted, voice cutting through the warehouse like a whip. Keep him safe. Don't stop for anything until you reach the hospital. Uraraka nodded, determination in her eyes, and together with Mina, they disappeared into the shadows of the warehouse corridors, moving swiftly toward safety. Bakugo stayed behind, fists raised, eyes locked on Kurogane. The rainwater-slick concrete beneath them reflected the dim emergency lights, turning the space into a dangerous, high-stakes arena. The fight wasn't over, not yet, but one thing was certain, Midoriya was moving, and Bakugo's priority had been achieved. Rain hammered down in sheets, drumming against the metal roof of the warehouse and the wet streets outside. Uraraka and Mina sprinted through the shadowed corridors, carrying Midoriya between them. His body was limp, pale, and trembling, gas still thick in his lungs. Every step sent shivers through them, every second stretching like an eternity. He's barely conscious. Mina gasped, glancing down at Midoriya's green eyes fluttering weakly. If we don't get him to the hospital fast. Uraraka's grip tightened, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. We will get him there. Keep him with us. Keep him breathing. Focus. Ahead, just as they reached the last corridor, shadows shifted. Figures emerged from the dim corners, weapons drawn, blocking their path. Kurogane's men. Stop right there. One barked, raising a gun. Mina froze, heart pounding. Uraraka's hands tightened on Midoriya, panic clawing at her chest. We can't fight all of them, she whispered, voice tight. The men advanced, calculated and lethal, leaving no room for hesitation. Bullets cracked through the air. Mina ducked instinctively, rolling to shield Midoriya, but there were too many, and they were closing fast. Then, a sudden roar of an engine echoed through the rain-soaked alley. Tires screamed as a sleek car skidded into view, lights cutting through the darkness. Zero! Uraraka breathed, relief flooding her voice. The car slammed to a halt beside them. Doors swung open, and Zero leapt out, ready before they even had to shout. Get in! Quick! Without a second thought, Uraraka and Mina lifted Midoriya into the back seat. Zero grabbed the door, pushing them safely in before returning to the driver's seat. The moment their door shut, Zero hit the accelerator. The car lunged forward, tires spitting rainwater, weaving through puddles with near-perfect precision. Behind them, Kurogane's men opened fire, bullets pinging off the metal of the car, splashing onto the wet asphalt. Zero maneuvered sharply, narrowly dodging a hail of shots. Every second was a heartbeat closer to safety, every shadow outside a threat that could end Midoriya's life. The rain blurred the city into streaks of light and darkness as Zero navigated with precision, the roar of the engine and the sting of gunfire melding into a tense symphony of survival. Through the windshield, the hospital's glowing entrance appeared ahead like a beacon. Uraraka's voice was steady, despite the fear in her chest. Hang on, Midoriya. Zero swerved into the parking lot, tires squealing across wet concrete, and the car came to a sharp stop. Mina and Uraraka wasted no time, lifting Midoriya and rushing him toward the emergency doors, every step a race against the seconds that had already stolen so much from him. Emergency! Patient critical! Get a stretcher now! Uraraka yelled, her voice cutting through the low murmur of the hospital staff. A team of nurses and orderlies reacted instantly, wheeling a stretcher toward them. Mina gently laid Midoriya down, his body pale and trembling, lips slightly blue, each shallow breath a silent plea. He's barely holding on. Mina whispered, panic edging her tone. Uraraka pressed a hand to his chest, willing him to fight, willing him to survive. You hear me, Midoriya? Stay with us, okay? You have to make it. Zero jogged behind them, rain still dripping from his coat, eyes scanning for any lingering threat. He's safe now. You're doing the right thing. Let the doctors handle him from here. Doctors swarmed, cutting away the wet clothes and checking monitors and IVs. Dr. Fujimoto arrived moments later, pushing through the cluster of staff. His eyes widened at the sight of Midoriya's condition, but his movements were precise, calm, controlled chaos. Get him onto the emergency bed. Start oxygen. We need to stabilize him before the CO exposure worsens, Fujimoto ordered. Nurses obeyed immediately, one adjusting the monitors while another connected an oxygen mask. Uraraka watches the doctors struggling to save Midoriya, tears brimming in her eyes but voice steady. It's okay, Midoriya, you're safe now. Just hang on a little longer. You're going to be okay. Outside, rain continued to fall, the city unaware of the life-or-death struggle within the hospital walls. Every second felt drawn out, torturous. Every beep of the monitor was a reminder that he was still fighting, that they were still racing against the clock. And somewhere, far from the hospital, Bakugo's fists pounded against Kurigane in the warehouse. Each blow's a promise, each dodge a vow. Kurigane's stance was calm, almost unnervingly relaxed, but his eyes glinted with lethal precision. Persistent, aren't you? He said, voice smooth but venomous. Bakugo's jaw tightened, fists clenched, muscles coiled like springs ready to snap. Stop talking. Step up or get out of my way. Kurigane tilted his head, smirking beneath the mask. Very well. Let's see if your anger can match your skill. He lunged, precise and fast, swinging a heavy metal pipe in a brutal arc. Bakugo sidestepped just in time, sparks flying as the pipe slammed into a stack of crates, sending splinters and dust into the air. He countered immediately, a sharp right hook aimed for Kurigane's jaw. The man twisted away, landing a hard elbow into Bakugo's ribs. Pain flared, breath leaving him, but Bakugo didn't falter. The two circled each other, predator and predator, the warehouse amplifying every movement, every breath, every heartbeat. Kurigane feinted left, swung right, Bakugo blocked, countered, twisted, ducked. Each strike echoed like thunder, each dodge a test of reflexes honed through years of training. You're fast, Kurigane said, dodging another blow, but can you think faster than I can? Bakugo growled, spitting out a thin line of blood. I don't give a DMN about your tricks. I'm ending this. Now. Kurigane smirked, then shifted suddenly, slamming his forearm against Bakugo's shoulder, pushing him backward into a steel support beam. The impact rattled through Bakugo's bones, but he twisted, rolling into a crouch, fists blazing. His strikes became a flurry, punctuated punches, uppercuts, and kicks designed to break Kurigane's rhythm, force him to make a mistake. But Kurigane was relentless, countering with surgical precision, his movements calculated, deadly. Every strike was meant not just to harm, but to probe Bakugo's defenses, to wear him down physically and mentally. Bakugo's breaths came hard, shallow, sharp. His ribs ached, his knuckles burned, but the thought of Midoriya kept him moving, kept him sharp. Every strike carried the weight of promise. Bakugo's fists pounded relentlessly, driving Kurigane backward, each strike sharper than the last. But Kurigane wasn't finished. As he twisted to avoid a brutal uppercut, his hand subtly slipped into his jacket pocket. In a flash too quick for anyone to notice, A glint of metal appeared, a slim, deadly knife. Before Bkdk could register the move, Kurogane lunged, slashing upward with the blade. Pain exploded in Bkdk's side as the knife sank into his stomach, slicing through muscle and tearing his jacket. He staggered back, a sharp gasp tearing from his throat, blood blossoming across his coat. "You!" Bkdk snarled through gritted teeth, the searing pain igniting his fury even more. His vision blurred at the edges, but the thought of Midoriya, struggling to survive, ignited a fire that refused to die. He forced himself upright, fists still clenched, jaw set. Kurogane's smirk widened beneath his mask, the shadows of the warehouse flickering across his face. "I told you, anger and need to protect make you vulnerable." Bkdk's vision narrowed, every nerve screaming, every breath a battle against the searing pain. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. "You think stabbing me hurts me enough to stop me?" His voice was low, dangerous, ragged with effort. "I don't care how much it hurts. I don't care if I bleed. I'm getting him back." Bkdk moved before the pain could slow him down. Kurogane stepped in, confident, the knife still angled for another strike, but Bkdk twisted inside the man's reach, grabbing Kurogane's wrist with a grip like iron. The blade wavered for half a second. That was all Bkdk needed. He slammed his forehead forward, cracking into Kurogane's mask. The impact stunned him. Bkdk wrenched the knife free in one brutal motion, ignoring the fresh surge of pain tearing through his own body. Kurogane barely had time to realize his mistake. Bkdk drove the blade forward in a single, decisive motion, straight to Kurogane's throat. The fight ended instantly. Kurogane's body stiffened, breath hitching in a wet, broken gasp. His hands clawed weakly at Bkdk's coat before losing strength altogether. The knife slipped free as Bkdk stepped back, letting the man collapse onto the cold concrete floor. Silence crashed down over the warehouse. Rain leaked through the broken roof, dripping steadily, almost mockingly, as Kurogane lay still, eyes empty, plans finished, games finally over. Bkdk stood there for a moment, chest heaving, blood soaking through his jacket and pooling at his boots. His hands trembled, not from fear, not from regret, but from everything he'd been holding back. "This is what you get," he muttered, voice raw. "For touching what's mine." He turned away without another glance, pressing a hand hard against his bleeding stomach as he staggered toward the exit. Every step hurt. Every breath burned. But none of it mattered. The adrenaline that had kept him upright finally gave out. He made it halfway up the steps before his legs buckled. "Boss." Kirishima caught him just in time, arm wrapping around Bkdk's waist as blood seeped through his jacket, dark against the rain. Kaminari and Shiro were right behind them, breathless, soaked, alive. Bkdk tried to straighten, failed. His vision swam, the warehouse lights blurring into streaks. His teeth ground together as he pressed a shaking hand against his stomach. "Midoriya," he rasped. Kaminari crouched in front of him instantly. Uraraka and Mina already took him. Shiro got them out clean. "They're heading to the hospital." That kept Bkdk conscious. "Good," he muttered. "Then move." Kaminari didn't argue. He glanced at Kirishima once, then nodded sharply. "Cars. Ready. I'll drive." They hauled Bkdk up, one on each side. Every step was agony, but Bkdk forced himself forward, boots scraping against concrete, rain soaking into the open wound at his side. Behind them, Todoroki stood near the entrance, phone already pressed to his ear, eyes cold and focused. "I'll clean this up," he said calmly. "By the time anyone looks, this place will be empty." Bkdk didn't look back. They shoved him into the back seat, Kirishima sliding in beside him to keep him upright. Kaminari took the wheel, hands tight, knuckles white. The engine roared to life. Rain blurred the windshield as they tore out of the warehouse, the city stretching ahead like a tunnel of lights and shadow. Bkdk slumped back against the seat, breathing shallow, pain radiating through his core. His eyelids fluttered, consciousness slipping in and out. "Hey," Kirishima said urgently, gripping his shoulder. "Stay with us. Don't you dare pass out." Bkdk huffed a weak, humorless breath. Midoriya floated somewhere between waking and nothing. Voices echoed around him, distant and distorted. Oxygen levels. Heart rate unstable. Hands moved over his body, firm and fast. Something covered his face, cool air rushing in, burning his lungs. It hurts to breathe. His chest felt heavy, like it was sinking inward. He tried to open his eyes. Light stabbed through his vision, white and overwhelming. Bakugo's face surfaced in his mind, sharp and furious and alive. The thought dissolved as darkness closed in again. The car sped through rain-soaked streets, Kaminari weaving through traffic with reckless precision, one eye constantly flicking to the rearview mirror. "Hospital's 10 minutes out," he said. "Hold on." Bakugo didn't respond. Kirishima tightened his grip, panic finally cracking through his voice. "Bakugo, hey, look at me." Bakugo's chest rose, fell. Shallow. Uneven. But still breathing. Still fighting. And somewhere ahead, under harsh white lights, Midoriya was doing the same. The hospital lights came into view far too slowly. Kaminari ran the last red light without hesitation, tires screeching as he swung into the emergency bay. The car barely stopped before doors were yanked open. "Emergency!" Kaminari shouted as they hauled Bakugo out. Stab wound, heavy blood loss. Bakugo's boots dragged against the pavement. His head lolled forward, vision dimming, the sounds around him blurring into a distant roar. He forced his eyes open one last time. "Midoriya," he breathed. Then his legs gave out completely. Orderlies rushed forward with a gurney, hands already gloved, voices sharp and practiced. Bakugo was lowered onto it roughly, antiseptic burning as they pressed gauze hard against his stomach. "Sir, stay with me," a nurse ordered. "Don't close your eyes." Bakugo snarled weakly, forcing them open. "Where?" His throat burned. "Where's Midoriya?" They wheeled him down the corridor at speed, fluorescent lights flashing overhead. As they turned a corner, he caught a glimpse through a narrow window, doctors clustered around an operating table, machines flashing, a still figure beneath sterile blue sheets. Green hair. An oxygen line. Midoriya. Bakugo's breath hitched. "Don't you?" His voice broke, raw and hoarse. "Don't you dare die." The doors slid shut before he could see more. "BP's dropping," someone said sharply. "We're losing blood fast." Hands pressed harder against his wound. Something sharp pierced his arm, cold spreading through his veins. "Sir, we're taking you into emergency surgery," a doctor said. "You've lost a lot of blood." His vision blurred again, the ceiling dissolving into white haze. But even as the world started to fade, his jaw set stubbornly. "You don't get to go before me, nerd. Not after all this. Not while I'm still breathing." Darkness closed in as they pushed him through swinging doors, alarms echoing down the hallway, two battles being fought under the same roof, both balanced on the same fragile line between life and death.